The man clearly possessed millions of magic talent points, but he poured them all into his speed stat, giving him superhuman speed. But at the same time, in the eyes of others, he became useless at the Magic Academy. However, only he knew that in a world where magic is considered a tool, and speed was conversely the most effective tool for his survival. It turns out 15 years ago, a game called Egger was released. When it first launched, it was considered a dating simulator. It was aimed at a female audience, but after just a few days, male players made up 90% of the player base. That's because the game allowed players to take on the roles of many different characters. They ranged from easy, with highly talented characters, to difficult, with those who were incompetent and useless. Among them was a trash-tier character famous for his extreme difficulty. And terrible trait, but what the hell. There was still one madman who played this character for 15 years, and that was none other than Beck Eason, our protagonist. Man, he's so damn handsome. In his room, Beck Eason lifted a glass of water to his lips, his sharp eyes noticing something on his computer, a flood of rude comments from other players. They filled his screen. What the hell is this bug, you trash game? I can't log in. Seeing this, Beck Eason mused, oh, are there some new posts on the forum? Is there a new update or something? Just then, more and more panicked comments started popping up. Damn it, where the hell did this giant monster come from? It just appeared out of nowhere and deleted all my game data. What the hell is a demon black dragon? It says my character died and I can't log back in. What the hell is going on? My character's been deleted. A calm Beck Eason glanced at the messages, his eyes widening in surprise as he muttered to himself, a final boss in a dating simulator. I thought the game was supposed to end once you successfully pair up with another character. Just then another post appeared on the screen. This one caught his eye. Hey guys, this boss is completely unbeatable. This piece of crap demon black dragon has 99% automatic magic resistance with no cooldown. It just keeps hammering me with some kind of magic absorption and magic drain ability. How the hell am I supposed to kill this thing? It's got to be a bug. After reading that, he exclaimed in shock, wait a minute, this guy is a famous ranker. Instead of being worried, Beck Eason was intrigued. He set his glass down and said thoughtfully, a final boss, huh? He stared intently at the computer, chin in hand, pondering for a moment before saying, it makes no sense for a monster with a magic nullifying ultimate to exist in a magic-based world. Is it really a bug? Everyone was in an uproar because their characters were being deleted instantly. On the screen, a menacing dragon appeared, forcing him to believe what the comments were saying. He sighed, so it must be true. That was it, the final boss possessing immense power. The 13th Dark Knight's demon. Black Dragon had appeared. Beck Eason's hands moved restlessly over his keyboard and mouse. So the story goes like this. The deeper you get into the world of Egger, you find a cult called the Black Demon Cult. Their goal is to help another world called Neamon conquer this one. And just when they finally achieve that goal, the demon Black Dragon appears. Beck Eason rubbed his chin, his eyes fixed on the game's interface. Neamon has already taken over 90% of the land. I've only ever cared about PvP. I never paid much attention to the main story, but now the whole thing has been turned on its head. Is this going to be okay? His expression grew more pensive. It's not like I can avoid a fight with it. Maybe I should give it a shot. His hand twitched. He looked up all the information on it. A notification immediately popped up on the screen. Will you battle the demon Black Dragon? Without hesitation, he clicked yes. In the game, the character Beck Eason pursed his lips. His expression was serious, his fingers clicking rapidly on the mouse. Time to unleash the skills I've spent the last 15 years perfecting. On the screen, his character Beck Eason appeared. He looked like a powerful warrior wielding a sharp sword of light. Opposite him stood the demon Black Dragon, a massive dark beast whose entire body was covered in sharp scales. Its eyes emitted a mystical light, giving it a majestic and terrifying aura. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. The battle began. He was completely immersed in the game now. And staring at the demon Black Dragon with cold eyes, it was as if he and his in-game character had become one. If I have to introduce my character Beck Eason, he's the only character in the entire game who can't use magic. This is despite the fact that everyone can use magic in this game. That's why even the most experienced players wouldn't choose him, especially with his scrawny body. All these years of experience have confirmed that he's simply worse than an NPC. He sighed and continued. Of course he can use some magic. Just one spell, actually. Suddenly, the demon Black Dragon opened its massive jaws, gathering a sinister energy. In the blink of an eye, it unleashed an incredibly powerful blast of magic, aiming to send him straight to the afterlife. It happened so fast, Beck Eason didn't see it coming at all. My eyes widened in shock, but he simply flashed a confident smile, ready to face this Black Dragon fiend directly. Beck Eason immediately leaped up sword in hand and easily slashed across the dragon's neck. He described it as being able to use the flash magic. To pull off a move like that, he quickly landed back on the ground but remained in a defensive stance given the situation. Beck Eason's expression quickly soured. It seemed his flash didn't work this time. As the character Beck Eason, he began to calculate that it allows him to teleport randomly within a range of 3 to 10 meters very quickly. With 15 years of gaming, he had drawn a profound conclusion for his character. The direction of his flash would be random, so if he couldn't control the exact direction, he'd die instantly from the speed and impact. that forced him to think about it with deadly seriousness. On top of that, the cooldown time and the mana cost were ridiculous. After using this skill, you're also hit with a 2-second immobility penalty, which is why anyone could learn it. But most people don't use it. Baek Yuseon, confident in his in-game character, said that for a veteran player like him, however, he had mastered this skill. He could control the direction, as well as the distance. He could also nullify the penalty. The features gradually became clearer. Character Baek Yuseon. Signature skill flash. Phenomenon mana deficiency. He read these stats and frowned, thinking it doesn't use up all the mana because he doesn't even have a mana stat to begin with. Unlike other magic, And flash is just a movement ability, nothing more, nothing less. Baek Yuseon, in high spirits, continuously mashed the keys, thinking, but I'm addicted to playing this character. And because everything depends on my own skill. He had his character, Baek Yuseon, leap high into the air and land a critical strike on the Black Dragon. He thought, that's why for the past 15 years I've only played this one character in the game who can't use combat magic. The Black Dragon Fiend refused to give up and continued to blast its power toward Baek Yuseon. Without a hint of fear, he swung his sword to block its power. The battle was long and tense. Finally, after a long fight thanks to his perseverance and skills, honed over 15 years, the dragon was defeated at the hands of the character Baek Yuseon. He stood proudly, looking at his achievement, lying motionless on the ground. Then suddenly, a notification appeared. You have defeated the final boss, the 13th moon of the Dark Knight. In the real world, Baek Yuseon sat in front of his monitor, his face a mask of disbelief. He couldn't believe his eyes and exclaimed, "What, did I really kill it?" He still couldn't believe what was happening and started to doubt himself. I know I'm basically decked out from head to toe in ancient grade items, but he's still a trash character. As surprising as it was, his fingers were still flying across the keyboard. Whatever. With this one-of-a-kind achievement, he immediately had an idea and said, I'm going to show off to the community that I killed the Black Dragon Fiend. His joy didn't last long. Right after Baek, Yuseon clicked his mouse, a series of identical bright red notifications popped up. Because the wrong ending has occurred, 90% of the world of Ever has now been destroyed. Seeing this, he was utterly shocked and yelled, "What?" Before he could fully process that message, another bright red line of text appeared. However, you are the one who came closest to the true ending. It made him stammer speechless. It didn't stop there. Next, a notification redder than your lover's lipstick flashed before Baek Yuseon's eyes. Please complete the true ending. This time it directly, it threw him into a state of utter confusion, making him scream. Along with that notification, Baek Yuseon felt his body being sucked into another dimension. He vanished from his room. Now in that white void, his eyes were wide with fear and he felt a strange sensation. Baek Yuseon woke up in a strange room. It was nothing like his modern computer room. He was lying motionless on the floor when a wave of dizziness washed over him. Baek Yuseon held his forehead as he sat up, wondering, what's going on? He sat there trembling and confused, looking around to get his bearings. He found himself in a dilapidated house and asked aloud, where am I? His eyes scanned everything in a circle when he suddenly spotted something essential in a corner and exclaimed with joy, a mirror. Baek Yuseon slowly walked toward the cracked mirror. But suddenly his eyes shot wide open, his pupils dilating as he saw his reflection. It felt as if time had stopped. He saw himself clearly in the mirror and his mind was racing. This appearance, it's Baek Yuseon. At that moment, something strange began to flash on the ground. It was materializing before him. Before Baek Yuseon could recover from his shock, he saw that it was a screen. Just like that, a quest appeared before him. Episode 1, Escape the Pursuit. Words appeared on it. He stared wide-eyed with surprise, trying to figure it out. He slowly stood up, no longer doubting it, and quietly confirmed to himself, this is Baek Yuseon's opening quest. Everything was unfolding like a pre-programmed script, which made him so anxious he broke into a cold sweat. No way. It was as if he remembered a crucial detail. Baek Yuseon immediately thrust his hand into his pocket to check for something he truly couldn't believe. What Baek Yuseon had just pulled out was an admission notice. Holding it in his hand, he instantly recognized it. This is the acceptance letter for Stellar Academy. Beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks and neck. Baek Yuseon felt like he was choking. It was just too similar to the game's plot. He thought, this is insane. But his face darkened and he covered it with his hand to hide his feeling of helplessness. In his mind, he kept confirming it. This is definitely the world of Ever and I must be Baek Yuseon. He put a hand to his forehead, silently trying to compose himself for a moment. In his heart, he made a bold decision. I need to be rational about this. As he was deep in thought, something suddenly occurred to him. That voice told me I had to reach the true ending. With all his years of experience, Baek Yuseon immediately realized, but from what I know, this game doesn't have a true ending. It only has multiple endings. But then his mind started racing at a strange speed. He realized, wait a second, could it be? It didn't take Yuseon long to recognize how absurd this whole situation was. Angrily clenching his teeth, he guessed to himself, no one has managed to reach the true ending in 15 years. Based on the game's plot, he quickly moved towards the window, a memory surfacing. As soon as Baek Yuseon woke up, he carefully and with a bit of tension, peeked through a crack in the window to observe the situation outside. He saw them, A group of people in long cloaks that hid their faces searching everywhere in the middle of a blizzard. He thought, the people chasing me are going to break in. Those strangely cloaked men were shouting frantically, "Where did that son of a whore run off to?" Seeing that, Becky Yuson immediately held his breath and hid in a corner of the room, trying his best to stay calm. He risked a glance outside to watch them cursing under his breath. Damn it, they're here. Just then, the leader of the strange group seemed to be drawn to something. He stopped short. With a hunter's intuition, he quickly sniffed out Becky Yuson's trail and shouted to the others, "There's a house over there." Without a second thought, he pointed and ordered them, "Go search it." The others obeyed in unison as his voice echoed through the area. He pressed himself tightly behind the door, thinking worriedly, what do I do now? With 15 years of gaming experience, Becky Yuson's eyes suddenly sharpened as he racked his brain. I can't stay hidden here for long. His hands clenched into fists, feeling frustrated and helpless. He lamented, but I can't fight them either. Becky Yunsun was desperately trying to come up with a plan. What should I do? Cutting through his thoughts, the notification window appeared once again. Right on time, the system gave Becky Yunsun a very important piece of information. You can use the skill blink. After reading the lines, he still couldn't believe his eyes, questioning himself, what I can use blink? The blink skill appeared on his screen. At that moment, his entire body emitted dazzling sparks of light as a thought surfaced in his mind. Becky Yunsun, with a body afflicted by mana leak syndrome. See, and a person unable to condense mana in his body had only one glimmer of hope, the magic that I've practiced day and night my whole life. And now he stood in the middle of the empty room, faced with a system notification. You can use the skill blink. Blink level 0, maximum distance 9 meters. Mana cost 1, cooldown 3 seconds. Bityu-son stared at the notification, confused and anxious, thinking, is it telling me to use blink right now? But that was only when I was using a mouse and keyboard to control my character in the game. Just then, the sound of frantic footsteps echoed from outside. The mercenary leader and his men were rapidly approaching the house, where Becky Yuson was hiding. The sound of their running grew louder and louder, giving him a terrible premonition. His gaze went blank for a moment before he immediately snapped his head toward the window. He panicked, unable to keep his composure as he saw the danger drawing near, thinking, damn it, they're here. A hot flush of panic spread through Bitch Yuson. Speechless, he could only think, there's no time left. The situation was dire. He couldn't just stand here and wait to die. He had to take a gamble. The only thing I can do is risk it, he thought. Outside, the leader of the thugs suddenly spotted something, his face contorted with anger. They realized Becky Yuson had run past and shouted in unison, we found the brat after him. They immediately gave chase like predators hunting their prey. Don't let him get away. Stop right there. Though worried, he managed to stay calm and kept moving forward. As he ran for his life, he remembered the first part of the game's tutorial. Escape the pursuers using blink. Luckily, there was a wide path right in front of him. Bitch Yuson quickly ran toward it, but he couldn't stop thinking, the people chasing me are wearing magic boots. They're way faster than I am. The only way I can escape is by using blink. Feeling outmatched, he was a bit clumsy with the magic, but he tried to reassure himself, calm down. You've used blink countless times before. With 15 years of gaming experience, this is practically muscle memory. They were about to catch up. One of them yelled, hey, you little punk, you're not going to stop, are you? Hearing that, Bitch Yuson shot a sharp, worried glance back at them and realized they've caught up. As a seasoned player, he understood the pros and cons of blink perfectly. If the user can't control the distance, they'll collide with an object and die instantly. However, before he could plan his next move, the leader had already caught up. He closed the distance in an instant, raising his massive blade to strike him down. I'll send you to hell. D. This left Becky Yuson speechless with terror. But in that instant, he turned the tables by using his magic, thinking, if I use it, this will be different from a normal blink. Using flash, he narrowly dodged the sharp blade. It was only then that Becky Yuson realized what happened. He smirked, pleased with himself for saving his own skin. I actually pulled it off, he thought. The stunned mercenaries could only stare in confusion. What was that flash? Is that guy a mage? Seeing him escape death so easily, the leader turned and furiously yelled, what are you standing around for? After using flash, the user is immobilized for 2 seconds. So that's our chance to... He cut himself off, his expression changing as he realized something. All he could do was watch Beck Yuson run away screaming in helpless rage. Wait, how is that bastard still running? Using the forest terrain to his advantage, he ran while trying to come up with a plan, constantly reminding himself to be careful, even more careful with the treacherous turns ahead. Beck Yuson thought to himself, I have to use this difficult terrain to my advantage. Because if a player can't learn how to control flash at this stage, he was starting to lose stamina from running for his life, panting heavily, but the thought kept running through his mind, they'll never make it to the next part. At least that's what he knew. In fact, 99% of players can't get past this tutorial. And even the 1% who do can never overcome the hurdle of controlling flash distance and consecutive jumps. But once again, Beck Yuson prepared to use his only skill. 3, 2, 1, flash. He finally landed safely. The man was shocked by his skill, exclaiming, using flash in terrain like this. Is that bastard insane? Then scowling in anger, he commanded, mages to the front, attack that bastard from a distance. Following his orders, the mages gathered together preparing to act. Hearing this, he glanced back at them anxiously. They're going to use magic, he thought. They immediately began casting their spells, and a surge of purple light enveloped the area. Baek Yusun instantly recalled the solution. Part 2 of the game's tutorial used flash to dodge the magic arrows aimed at you. A worried, almost panicked expression crossed his face as he remembered a rule from the game. I can see everything behind me because it's on a screen, which means I can dodge them in a crisis. A notification appeared from the game world of Igor, providing Baek Yusun with some information. Skill Magic Leak Syndrome is now active. Magic Leak Syndrome is a passively generated skill. Sixth Sense and Mental Acceleration are now active. He glared at the streaks of blue light hurtling toward him. Those were the magic arrows created by those mercenaries to take him out in one go. Baek Yusun constantly used the skills he had accumulated. He dodged the deadly arrows, but you can't dodge forever. Right now, a magic arrow was closing in, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of fear. Without hesitation, he quickly used his skill, Flash. At the same time, a massive earth-shattering explosion erupted. He had just managed to avoid a critical hit from those mercenaries. Not expecting such immense power, Baek Yusun had thrown up his arm to shield himself. Now, as the smoke and dust settled, it revealed a massive crater left by the explosion's impact. Seeing the incredible power of that attack, he finally came to his senses. That was close. But he didn't stand around for long. He immediately took off again, running for his life from his pursuers. As he ran, he tried to recall the game's storyline, the final part. Exhausted from running, Baek Yusun panted heavily as he stared ahead. Before him was a bottomless abyss, just a few steps away. It's a one-way ticket to the afterlife. According to what's supposed to happen, this is Tutorial Part 3, Cross the Abyss using Flash. This chasm, even a normal person would have trouble crossing it if they had wings, let alone a pathetic character like me. But he had already experienced this while playing the game and had learned from it. Baek Yusun stood at the edge of the chasm, thinking, the only way across is to control the flash distance with absolute precision. The next steps of the plot slowly came back to him. After that, I should run into a few mages who will be passing by and I can escape. And that's the end of the tutorial. But that was in the game. Now he had to think things through carefully to get past this part. I need to cancel the flash spell after exactly 0.1 seconds. If I fail even once, I'll die right here. He stood there observing intently and spotted about 20 floating rocks. Staring at the massive stones, he struggled internally. 0.1 seconds. So much easier said than done. After thinking for a moment with no solution, Baek Yusun clenched his fist in frustration. What kind of maniac designed this game? That's what he was thinking anyway, but he definitely had his own plan. However, he thought with grim determination, for a veteran player like me, to be honest, it's doable. And yet, as he stared into the deep dark abyss, a difficult problem surfaced. The problem was right in front of him. At that exact moment, his pursuers caught up. Pointing at Baek Yusun, one of them yelled, "He's over there." He turned, looking back at them with a cold expression. "They're closer than I thought," he mused. He watched their every move as they ran toward him, calculating seriously. "The distance between us is about 100 meters. My flash needs 3 seconds to cool down. It's not enough time." Baek Yusun relaxed his body and made his choice. It seemed to be the most viable way for him to survive. With a determined look in his eyes, an incredibly bold idea came to mind. It was to kill every last one of them. Amidst the desolate weather and snowstorms with the bottomless abyss before him, Baek Yusun could only hide behind a rocky crevice. As he observed his surroundings, a thought surfaced. Even I think this is insane. How could I even dare to think I could do it? Especially when I've never even been in a real fight before. He quietly looked at the mercenaries chasing him and thought, if this were a game, the system wouldn't let me attack my pursuers. But this is reality. Seeing them get closer, Baek Yusun confirmed it in his mind. There's no rule saying I have to blindly follow game logic here. Just like that, he gripped his dagger, readying a defensive stance, and continued to ponder. I don't mind the idea of killing someone. And it's not because they're my parents' enemies from the storyline. Suddenly, Baek Yusun's eyes became sharper and colder than ever. He focused on them, realizing, they're here. It's just, I think I can win. With that, Baek Yusun, his dagger hidden, revealed himself before them, leaving them stunned. The leader's eyes widened in anger. Staring at him, he growled through gritted teeth, "It's him." He immediately ordered his men, "Attack! Get that brat now!" They obeyed, shouting in unison, "Yes, sir." The mercenaries holding heavy weapons. Yes, charged straight at him to strike him down. One of them had a scornful look on his face, thinking, he dares fight us alone, what an idiot. But Baek Yusun didn't flinch at all. He was certain of it. You're dead meat. Facing them, he showed no fear. Instead, he calmly calculated. Magic activation. Target distance 8.7 meters. Flash. This left the arrogant mercenary from before completely stunned. Frozen in place, even the leader could only stare at Baek Yusun with a look of shocked fear. Then suddenly he flashed forward and attacked without the slightest hesitation. He plunged his dagger straight into one of their stomachs, causing him to spit up blood and log out of this world. The bloodstain remained on his face like an indelible mark. Baek Yusun, despite knowing he'd just run someone through, showed no change in his expression. If anything, it grew even more resolute. As streams of blood from the man's body slowly trickled onto his hand, he noted internally, I can clearly feel the blood running down my fingers. I don't feel any guilt at all. Cutting off the thought, he decisively slashed the man again, continuing to think, after all, I'm just killing them to survive. Then he immediately pulled his dagger out, much to the horror of the others. Without hesitating, he landed a final, powerful kick. The arrogant mercenary now lost all ability to resist. He fell backward. One of the henchmen had been taken down, causing the leader's blood to boil, with a rage that made him want to tear him to shreds. Baek Yuson, meanwhile, took this opportunity to turn and run as fast as he could. Seeing this, the leader yelled, "He's getting away!" Baek ran for his life, despite the henchmen still chasing after him. They couldn't let him escape at any cost. The first step was complete. As he ran for dear life, he thought, I've taken care of one of them, but the next attack will be very difficult. What should I do? Suddenly, he had a strange feeling. He glanced back, wondering, why is it so quiet? Did they give up? But what a surprise. The mercenary leader appeared out of nowhere, looming in front of him, blocking his path. Baek Yusan had to skid to a halt, realizing, no, not at all. He stared at them, sweat pouring down his face, and thought, are they going to use magic again? What if I just dodge? Baek Yusan's legs suddenly felt heavy, not like before. He cursed inwardly, damn it. They had no intention of going easy on him. They immediately began casting a spell. The leader pointed at him and shouted, now. As soon as the word left his mouth, his henchman instantly unleashed a strange magic, immediately directing a large bolt of fire right towards Baek Yusan. He instantly sensed the danger, his eyes widening as he gritted his teeth, looking for a way to escape. The bolt of fire shot towards him like a missile locked on target. There was nothing he could do. He could only turn and run for his life, cursing in his head, damn it, what is this magic? As if by some miracle, a tree growing out of a rock appeared ahead of him. Seeing it was like a drowning man finding a life raft. He rejoiced inwardly, there it is. Without a second thought, Baek Yusan immediately reached out for the branch, but it seemed he didn't have enough momentum. So once again, he used flash. At the same time, an explosion that seemed to rip the ground apart occurred. It left a huge crater with thick smoke and dust billowing everywhere. The leader slowly approached to survey the scene. He stood there smugly assuming he was dead, and said with satisfaction, let that be a lesson for his arrogance and for being such a nuisance. But his eyes fell upon an empty crater. This wiped the smug smile right off his face, replacing it with confusion and fear. He scanned the area, then shouted in a panic, he's not here! But in reality, Baek Yusan, dagger in hand, was approaching. It wasn't until he was close that the leader felt a bone-chilling killing intent and spun around. As he got closer and closer to his prey, he realized one of the unusual things about flash. Baek Yusan gathered all his strength, gritted his teeth, and came to his own conclusion. It maintained its momentum both before and after use. Just like that, he yelled, flash, and charged straight forward, directly stabbing a henchman in the stomach. His screams echoed throughout the forest, causing the remaining henchmen who witnessed it to tremble and say, what the... But before he could finish his sentence, Baek Yusan, like a flash of lightning, came and took down the next guy with ease. The leader was now drenched in sweat because his henchmen had been wiped out in the blink of an eye. Soon enough, Baek Yusan's entire body was stained red with their blood. After a few clashes, he was getting tired and let out a long sigh. Initially, they were a group of mercenaries, but now only this many remained. Still ready for a fight, he kept thinking to himself, two left. Baek Yusan, with a determined look in his eyes, stared straight at the mercenaries. He thought to himself, two left. I need to finish them before the two from behind catch up. The leader stared at him surprised and spoke up. Some freak. His reaction speed is abnormal for a mage. He continued to shout, who the hell are you? Hearing this, he directed his cold, sharp eyes toward them while thinking, of course, my reaction speed is better than most pro gamers, but that's only when it comes to games. He stood still for a long moment, calculating his next move. I can't dodge their attacks forever, especially at close range. As he thought this, he rushed at him like the wind. I'll end this fight as quickly as possible. The leader saw him charge without any fear. Instead, he grinned with delight, readied his blade in a defensive stance, and said, I've figured out how you fight. He thought to himself, all this brat uses is flash and daggers. This foolish leader thought that as long as he protected his head and neck, that dagger won't be able to kill me. Baek Yusan now, like a gust of wind, charged to attack him head-on. With the blade in his hand, he was ready to face him. At that moment, the mercenary leader, with an incredibly provocative attitude, he shouted, come on, make your move. Then he immediately used his Ice Wave skill to take Baek Yusan down. But he wasn't afraid and confidently used Flash again. And at the same time, the leader used his power to create large shards of ice, confidently thinking to himself, all right, I've got him. Now let's see his face contort in pain. But suddenly his eyes shot wide open, as if he had witnessed something horrible. Baek Yusan's target wasn't him, but the henchman next to him. By now, he had quickly taken down the remaining man, leaving the mercenary leader utterly stunned at close range. He witnessed the sharp strike of the dagger up close and was momentarily speechless. It took him about 5 seconds to compose himself. His eyes widened in disbelief as he said, damn it, a moment ago you were running for your life like you'd never fought before. But now, in contrast to his bewilderment, was Baek Yusan's strange calmness. He glanced over at him and replied, a moment ago, Baek Yusan smirked with a slightly contemptuous look and continued, thanks for helping me get better at this. His words instantly enraged him, and he gritted his teeth and spat out, "You little shit. Don't think for a second I was going easy on you." His anger had now reached its peak. He swung the sword in his hand and threatened, "This time I'll kill you." Becky. Yuson paid no mind to his words, and gathering his strength, charged forward once more. He attacked him directly, but this time he was on equal footing, with a weapon in each hand and eyes full of killing intent. He quickly threw a spear straight at him, then calculated, using flash, in reality, risks a counterattack. He threw that spear to trick me into defending from the front, and then attacked me from another side. Becky Yuson predicted his move, and continued to think, "I'm not going to let you get your way." The situation unfolding before him, the leader grinned and thought, "All right. Now I just need to attack him when he gets close." But before he could do anything, Becky Yuson vanished from his sight in the blink of an eye. Suddenly his face turned pale, his eyes bulged, and a few weak sounds escaped his lips. It was only then that he felt something. Contrary to his initial calculations, he gritted his teeth and roared in anger. No way! The harsh reality was that he hadn't done what the leader predicted at all. Becky Yuson had stabbed him directly through the heart. Only then did he realize, so that bastard intended to attack me from the front from the very beginning. The battle ended just like that, which also meant the end of Episode 1, Chapter 1, Escape from the Pursuit has ended. A notification appeared. You have received experience. You will receive an additional reward for being the only one to advance the plot according to the Constellation Project. At the same time, Becky Yuson was leaning against a cliff wall covered in wounds. He was breathing heavily. Becky Yuson tried to reach out and grab his dagger. Suddenly, something made him freeze. He stood there stunned before the blood-soaked corpses. Becky Yuson couldn't believe his eyes and thought to himself, right, this isn't a dream. He suddenly slumped to the ground, replaying the scenes of slaughter in his mind, and couldn't help but reflect, my first flash, my first battle, and my first time killing someone. Becky Yuson was lost in his own silence. He had killed a human being to survive. Pushing that thought aside, he stood up and brushed the dirt that clung to him. After a long silence, he let out a sigh and decided, I have to get out of here quickly. But then he remembered something and stopped. Becky Yuson turned back to look and said, wait a minute. And then he frowned, staring intently at the corpse, deep in thought about something. Next, he quickly walked over and began to search the bodies of the mercenaries, all the while thinking, this is a bit scummy, but I have to be realistic, I don't have any money. After a while, Baek-Yun-sung luckily discovered a bag of gold, his heart filled with joy. There it is. Let's see, this much. About 2 million won. It's still better than nothing. His joy was short-lived. As he held the bag of gold, he thought to himself, now the problem is, ahead was a cliff completely covered in white snow, with a bottomless abyss waiting for him to cross. Baek-Yun-sung arduously dragged his feet across the white snow. Standing on the precipice between life and death, he told himself that he had to cross this cliff. While he was thinking, a voice suddenly echoed from somewhere. Is anyone here? It caught his attention. On the other side of the chasm was a group of people calling out loudly. This way, Baek-Yun-sung saw them and thought that's a ray of hope. As they got closer, he guessed that must be the group of mages that appeared in the tutorial, right? Seizing the opportunity, Baek-Yun-sung immediately raised his hand high, waving and shouted back, I'm over here. The other side replied, there's no bridge nearby. Can you make it across? Yes, I'm on my way. Upon hearing his words, a stranger immediately informed his comrades, wait a minute, he says he can cross. Hearing this, Kai asked, but to cross this cliff, he'd have to be at least a third-ranked knight. Can that young man really do it? He replied vaguely, I'm not sure. Suddenly he stopped mid-conversation, his eyes widening as he looked forward. Everyone gasped in unison with surprise. They said, because they saw him jump from one floating cliff to another in the blink of an eye. The two of them stared intently, not looking away for a second. Baek-Yun-sung calmly used flash to jump between each cliff. Seeing him move like that, they couldn't help but wonder, what is that? Some kind of jumping magic. He immediately answered, it's flash. At that moment, Lee Se-won just stood there silently observing Baek-Yun-sung's every move. The red-haired student spoke up again, flash. But you can't control the direction and distance with flash. Watching him precisely control his flashes, step by step, he asked, doubtfully, how is he able to do that? A moment later, his jaw dropped in shock at something else. He saw two strangers following him in the distance and asked in confusion, those two people are, with him. Before he could understand what was happening, his face suddenly showed clear fear. On the other side, there were still a few mages, henchmen of the mercenaries, their eyes filled with killing intent. He silently cast a strange type of magic, creating a dark entity and aiming it straight at Baek-Yun-sung, causing everyone on the other side to cry out in fear. Hey, watch out! He immediately turned back, cursing in his head, damn it! To save his own life, he couldn't delay and immediately used his familiar skill flash to dodge. Having narrowly escaped with his life, Baek-Yun-sung composed himself and looked back to see the aftermath. The explosion was truly terrifying. It left behind a huge crater. A single glance was all it took for him to recognize them. It's those mercenaries from before. This is really dangerous. Baek-Yun-sung found a safe spot and thought carefully, flash needs another 3 seconds to cool down. It's impossible to dodge all their magic. He looked back over his shoulder and observing while constantly calculating, I have to find another floating rock to use as a foothold. Before he could do anything, his eyes suddenly widened in fear. It turned out there was another mage. He had taken advantage of Baek Yoon-sung's distraction to launch a sneak attack with his magic. Luckily, his agility allowed him to sense the danger and immediately succeed in dodging. But as the blast of power grazed past him, it was enough to singe off a few precious strands of his hair. And it didn't stop there. The impact of the magic was so great that the rock beneath his feet couldn't withstand it and began to crack and shatter. It was so sudden that he couldn't react in time and simply fell. But his mind still registered the fact I'm falling. The main character's plot armor wouldn't let him die so easily. In an instant, Baek Yoon-sung twisted his body around and immediately scanned his surroundings. At this distance, it was hopeless. Damn it, all the floating rocks are too far away from me. At that moment, Baek Yoon-sung began to exude power, having apparently decided to take a gamble, hoping he could land on a spot just a few centimeters from the edge of that ledge. He instantly used Flash. His injured hand finally managed to get a firm grip on the cliff face, even though he was still dangling from it. But in his heart, Baek Yoon-sung was endlessly relieved. I'm alive. But before he could even compose himself, a source of power like a blazing fire was rushing up from below to incinerate him. In this situation, his mind was still racing. Or maybe not. It was like a rocket already right at his feet. At that moment, Baek Yoon-sung was 99% certain of his own death and thought to himself, I'm going to die. Just as he was facing death, a blue beam of power suddenly shot out from somewhere, easily and completely destroying the terrifying dark magic from that group of mages. After that intentional collision, the only remains were dust and strange jade green stones. Baek Yoon-sung was still clinging tightly to the cliff edge, but his eyes were filled with disbelief. He wondered to himself what kind of magic was that? An ice spear wrapped in lightning. Who could combine two elements into a single attack like that? His eyes widened at the thought, and what's more, they even calculated the trajectory perfectly, without using any mana. Who could execute such a perfect attack? Meanwhile, down below with the group of mages, all eyes were on Isumon because she was the one who used magic to counter the mercenary's spell. She had saved his life. At that moment, the two mages who witnessed their spell being destroyed were not only surprised, but also terrified. Impossible. They quickly sensed the danger and turned tail to flee. Seeing them run for their lives, Baek Yoon-sung breathed a sigh of relief. Still clinging tightly to the rock, he thought with relief, looks like I'm going to live. After a while, he finally made it to the other side of the chasm and started interacting with the group of mages. Baek Yoon-sung immediately recognized his savior. He hurried over and struck up a conversation with her. Thank you for helping me back there. Isomoon didn't even glance at him, simply saying coldly, I didn't do it to receive any gratitude, so there's no need to mention it. Baek Yoon-sung replied awkwardly, all right then. Suddenly he was drawn to Isomoon's mysterious aura, thinking to himself, she has the most beautiful voice I've ever heard, but she seems quite unapproachable. Yet his expression returned to one of indifference. He figured it didn't matter anyway. Baek Yoon-sung recalled the game's story. Even though they were bandits who pillaged the village according to the knowledge he had gathered, the truth was, most activities like that were carried out by the dark magic cult. But even so, that's all over now. The moment I cross this cliff, I'll enter the mage's territory and those people from the dark magic cult won't follow me anymore. Baek Yoon-sung sighed, gazing into the distance, a flicker of excitement in his heart. So besides, they don't even know who I am. Just then a notification panel appeared. The game World of E sent him new information. Chapter 2, Admission to Stellar Academy. After a quick read, Baek Yoon-sung spoke with confidence. This is Chapter 2. It doesn't sound too difficult, but upon closer inspection, the words Stellar Academy were enough to make him dizzy. He reluctantly muttered, how am I supposed to go to school at this age? In the quiet of the night, the mage's carriage moved silently, continuing its journey. The coachman silently urged the horses on through the darkness. Baek Yoon-sung sat in the carriage exhausted and drifted off to sleep without realizing it. As he slept, childhood memories flooded back to him. An image of Baek Yoon-sung as just an adorable little boy with big round eyes appeared eagerly calling for his mother. She, a slender figure, smiled happily as she listened to him speak. When I grow up, I'm going to be a mage. Her voice full of warmth replied, all right, Mom believes you can do it. Yoon-sung held the book in his hands, reading and thinking, Mom and Dad worked so hard saving up money to buy me this old magic tome. Even back then, as just a little boy, he had already thought, I'll study really hard so I don't disappoint Mom and Dad. To achieve that, the young Baek Yoon-sung's efforts were seen by his mother, who always took care of him when he fell asleep studying. But life is always unfair. Those dreams seemed to shatter completely as his mother worried repeatedly called for a doctor. She hugged Baek Yoon-sung tightly, unable to believe the doctor's words. Are you saying my son has Manhwa syndrome? At that time, he was in a complete panic, denying it. No, that can't be. He and the game character seemed to be merging completely as he thought, is this Baek Yoon-sung's memory? The memories came flooding back so overwhelmingly that Baek Yoon-sung couldn't tell them apart, questioning himself. Or perhaps it was the image of a young Baek Yoon-sung sobbing his heart out that appeared once more, making him think it was his own memory. The image of that little boy startled him awake. His head was spinning, throbbing as if it were being split open. He squinted at the sunlight shining on his face. And fully awake now mumbled, it's morning. Seeing this, the red-haired guy sitting across from him spoke up. Han-ha, you're awake. I was just about to wake you. he added, "We'll be arriving soon in Leroy, the satellite city of Akaneum." After the carriage had traveled for a while, the group leader called out, "Let's stop here and rest for a bit." Everyone got out of the carriage and spread out to chat. When Baek Yuseon got out, he stretched to warm up after the long journey. He was surprised to feel a strange gaze on him. Turning around, he saw Iso Moon staring at him. This confused Baek Yuseon immensely, and yet, after looking at him, she turned her back and walked away without a word. This made him give a forced smile, thinking to himself, "So cold." Looking around, he continued to rest. "Everything seems fine. I was worrying too much." I'm glad the timeline is closer to the modern era than the Middle Ages. With 15 years of gaming experience, I know that magic exists in the world of Aeger. However, in safe cities, trains and airships as well as portals are set up for convenient travel to faraway places. Baek Yuseon turned to look at the carriage and thought, "Right now, I'm heading to Legocha to board an airship." Baek Yuseon imagined a beautiful, colorful city. Legocha is on the route to Akarium, and the real story only begins in Akarium, the city of magic. Just like that, he had also located the academy. I'll be studying at Akaneum, home to famous magic towers, magic knights, and 5 prestigious academies, including the school with the most powerful mages. Among the many outstanding students, Stella Academy is the best. Baek Yun-on leaned against the vehicle, his mind made up. Stella is where all the geniuses and nobles from all over the world gather. Finishing his recollection of Akaneum, he mused to himself, "I really don't understand how Baek Yun-on managed to get into a place like that." At that thought, he suddenly remembered he still hadn't checked his own abilities. He immediately summoned the system window, and information on the mana leakage syndrome appeared. Level 1. Strength increases by 0.3%. Agility increases by 0.5%. Sensitivity increases by 10%. Sixth Sense consumes the user's mental power to activate mana detection. Detects mana within a 12-meter radius and activates accelerated perception. Automatically activates when danger is detected. After reviewing his status window, he was secretly relieved. Sixth Sense and accelerated perception. If it weren't for these 2 things, I probably would have been dead a long time ago. He remembered that scene. He concluded that it was a physical curse that made it impossible for him to accumulate mana inside his body, the mana leakage syndrome. Just as the original story described it, it's an inherent curse tied to Baek Yun-on. Although it's a bad thing, it helps him detect surrounding mana using his sixth sense. It also allows him to sense anything coming at him without needing to see it. Thanks to that, accelerated perception gives him the ability to perceive events faster than others. Whenever a threat attacks him, it's as if time slows down. After analyzing it, Baek Yun-on thought that the ability was essential for someone like him who can't use mana. But the sixth sense can't be used for long periods. It consumes a lot of mental energy and has some pretty major side effects after use. Next up were the stats. He looked down to continue reading. Baek Yun-on's statistics. Strength 1 star, 59%. Agility 1 star, 81%. Stamina 0 stars, 97%. Sensitivity 1 star, 97%. Endurance 1 star, 51%. Intellect 1 star, 43%. Mana experience 10 remaining. 1 skill, blink level 0. Trait mana leakage syndrome level 1. After looking it over, he thought the starting stats weren't too bad. The original Baek Yun-on had very low sensitivity, he mused, but it seems part of that stat cell was filled in by my own personality. As a veteran player, he already understood that in the world of Iger, it's not just about one level. Each stat has its own level. Skills are in levels and stats are in stars. Baek Yun-on recalled that the maximum stat level is 9 stars, but basically no one ever reaches that threshold. This made him think, I've played this game for over 15 years. My record was only 8 stars in both sensitivity and endurance. He clicked on the system window wanting to take a closer look. From now on, I should invest in sensitivity to enhance my sixth sense and reaction speed anyway. I can always train my stamina and flexibility in other ways. He looked at the changed stats. Sensitivity 1 star, 97%. Endurance 1 star, 51%. Intellect 1 star, 43%. He thought with interest, they're all done. After adjusting everything, he couldn't stop calculating. The problem right now is this mana leakage syndrome. If I can't find a way to deal with it, it'll be hard for me to survive for long. I have to upgrade it to an innate physical trait as soon as possible. Standing under the vast sky, Baek Yun-on was constantly considering how to improve his mana leakage syndrome. The answer is at Stella Academy, so I have no choice but to go to Stella if I want to prevent the apocalypse and treat this syndrome. He let out a helpless, resigned sigh. I really didn't want to go there. I wish there was some way to help me right now. Just then, the system suddenly displayed, "You have missed several notifications." He was surprised, thinking, I've never seen this before. Before he could click to check, someone called out, "Hey, let's go." Baek Yun-on was startled and replied, "Okay, I'm coming." He then turned around to get on the vehicle, thinking, I guess I'll check it later. But he didn't notice that Lee Siola had been watching him the whole time. She observed his every move without saying a word. The scene changes to the airship, which has finally taken off. It was heading straight for Stella Academy. The captain announced, "We are now departing for Akaneum. All passengers, please be seated." At that moment, a rich purple-haired punk saw Baek Yun-on looking all around. The punk gave him a contemptuous look and said to his friends, Look at that guy staring around like a lost kid. First time on an airship, he must be some kind of country bumpkin. The purple-haired guy intentionally spoke loudly, mocking him. I have no idea why Stella would let a country hick like him set foot in here. He looked at the others. The world's most prestigious academy is being tainted by lowlifes like this. Baek Yoon. On endured the insult, looking at them but saying nothing. He just remained silent. Then to the punk's surprise, he let out a sigh. He turned away thinking, kids are the same everywhere, huh? Seeing that he was being ignored, the purple-haired guy became furious, his face turning beet red. Did you just sigh? He yelled. He seethed and muttered, that lowly bastard. He wouldn't let him get away with it. He ran after him, shouting, hey, stop right there. Suddenly, everyone around him stopped paying him any mind and started whispering about something else. Annoyed, he turned back to ask what the hell was going on. These people suddenly got all noisy. Then the purple-haired guy was completely stunned to see someone approaching a girl with long platinum blonde hair and expensive accessories. As she, with all her finery, took step after step, everyone around immediately recognized her and shouted, Princess Biseon. Hearing that, Baek Yuseong turned around, wondering, did he just say Biseon? The girl with platinum pink hair and deep red eyes. That was Princess Hong Biseon Adolebit of the Adolebit Kingdom. She walked proudly amidst everyone's gossip. Seeing this, the purple-haired guy went up to greet her. It's a pleasure. However, her only response was a cold, sharp glance before she walked past without a second thought, leaving him frozen and stammering, unable to say a word. Hong Biseon walked towards the stairs where he was standing, leaving behind the dazed gazes of the young masters. As she passed Baek Yuseong, he also came to a realization. So this is the villain of this world. Hong Biseon is one of the main characters of this game. She and the female protagonist are always at odds. In the end, she dies no matter which route you choose. She's brutally murdered in a few endings. In another, she's bullied by the entire academy and then expelled. In another ending, after experiencing some kind of humiliation. No one ever sees her again. It's as if the developers had a personal grudge and wanted her to suffer no matter what. Baek Yuseong remembered hearing that the guys who played this game all liked her. But she really is pretty. Just then, his stomach rumbled. Without another thought, he headed up the stairs. He had to find something to eat. After seeing the luxurious food and its sky-high prices, Baek Yuseong picked something up, was rendered speechless, and immediately turned to leave. As he walked away, he couldn't stop complaining in his head. Everything here is so damn expensive. I guess I'll just eat when we get to Acarneum. Just then, an announcement echoed, reaching everyone's ears. Attention passengers, the ship will be docking at Acarneum in 10 minutes. Please proceed to the first floor. I repeat, the ship will be docking at Acarneum in 10 minutes. Please proceed. Hearing the announcement, Baek Yuseong smiled and thought, it's finally starting. All right, from now on, this is my reality. Let's do this. Baek Yuseong leaned against the wall, looking troubled. He sighed and thought to himself, good thing I already took care of that. Baek Yuseong fell down. But can I even survive at Stella Academy? He thought about those mysterious people. I won't survive in this world. Baek Yuseong looked out the window. If only I had something that could help me right now. He suddenly realized. Now I remember I have an unread notification. A system window appeared. The Constellation Project has sent you a special reward. Want a lower version of the items that you used in the game to a lower version of the skills you acquired in the game, 3 XP points. Baek Yuseong rested his chin on his hand and thought, at least this system has a bit of a heart. Let's see, which one should I pick? He was torn between taking Reflector or Briar's Lightning. As if reading his mind, the system announced, according to the search results, the rank of the items is too high and will be downgraded. He asked again, what about Hyperspace Flash? Searching skills. This skill is an upgraded version of Flash and cannot be obtained. However, you can use the reward to slightly enhance the Flash skill. Hearing this, Baek Yuseong froze. So it really has to be downgraded. The system continued, due to a deficiency in your narrative energy, we cannot fully materialize it. What's that? He asked. The system replied, it is something that drives the plot forward, known as narrative energy. If you continue to discover hidden stories, the energy will accumulate. At this point, Baek Yuseong finally understood. So in short, you can't give me overpowered items because I'm just a newbie, right? He fell into thought as the system went silent. Baek Yuseong continued to ask, then what about the Finch glasses? The system went silent again, then finally responded. After a system check, it is concluded that the item can be provided. All right then, I'll take it. As soon as he finished, a blue light appeared in his hand, forming an item that looked like a normal pair of glasses. Looking at it, Baek Yuseong thought, I can't believe the day has come where I actually have to wear this. The Finch glasses is an item that holds all the information I gathered while playing the game. In the world of Eger, you can't recall or read information about monsters you've hunted or knowledge you've acquired. That's why players develop countless items to store information in their own ways, and I was no different. With that thought, he put the glasses on. The lenses lit up and the information window appeared again. Finch glasses. Description. Can't remember what you ate last night. Don't worry because you have these glasses. Saves the details of everything you've ever seen. Special feature sealed Finch folder. Use intellect to activate. Seeing this, Baek Yuseong immediately used his intellect to open the folder. System loading. Opening Finch folder. The folder then opened, displaying various information, alchemy materials, hunting grounds, dungeons, monsters, characters. Baek Yuseong gave it a once-over and thought, this is good enough. He blended into the crowd. This place is just like the real world, so I can't talk about what I can do with the system. But with these glasses, I can get back about half the power I used to have. Baek Yuseong closed the folder. As he was walking and thinking, a voice rang out, catching his attention. Hey, who's that? There's a girl up ahead surrounded by whispers. You mean the eldest daughter of that buried traitor? They murmured among themselves, oh my god, how dare she show her face here, they hissed. As he listened, Baek Yunon wondered about Iso. He thought, now that I think about it, one of the functions of the spectacles allows me to register or check a character's information. In the story, Baek Yunon then uses the glasses to open the system window and check her information. Iso Mon, pseudo-heroine mage, likes drinking pickle juice before eating pizza. Eldest daughter of the Dutchmon clan. The death of her parents led to the downfall of her family later on. He wondered, she's a pseudo-heroine. To talk about Aizo, the pseudo-heroine, there's one thing to mention. Although I'm in the world of Ever, the truth is that the world of Ever is a game based on a fictional romance novel. It's called Don't Love the Princess, and that novel is about the heroine Izo, who lost all of her relatives. She grows up by confronting the schemes of the villain Hong Beyonce, and finally ends up with the male lead. Thinking about this, he felt a bit sad. At the end, her plan for revenge completely disappears, and she ends up being protected by the other male characters. It had a sad ending after receiving a lot of criticism from readers, but the problem is, although the world in the game is based on the novel, the plot is completely different. In the game, a character named Flame was added, and she replaced the heroine's role. Furthermore, this character Flame also has her own storyline. She was once an ordinary woman from the modern world who was a fan of Don't Love the Princess, and was reincarnated into this world. Baek Yoon-on concluded, so unlike the novel, Iso becomes a pseudo-heroine in the game, while Flame becomes the real heroine, no matter how much the player tries. She can't survive in any of the story routes. This is the result of being pushed out of the true heroine's position. After thinking for a moment, he takes off his glasses and mumbles, but it has nothing to do with me. Baek Yoon-on watches Isomon's retreating back. But is it just my imagination? He thought, I feel like I've met her somewhere before. Then Baek Yoon-on denied it. It must be my imagination. I should get ready. Time passes at Stellar Academy. The new students have all gathered in the courtyard. The principal speaks, his voice echoing, as you all know. The dark mages are sorcerers who have obtained power from another world and turned into monsters, even at this very moment. Those dark mages continue to invade us by opening persona gates or unsealing ancient dungeons to attack the magical world. Our mission as mages is to protect the world from the invasion of these dark forces. While the principal was speaking, some people started whispering complaints. Starting the semester with such a boring speech, so lame. The principal continued, and next is the oath ceremony for the 4 students with the highest scores along with the freshman representative. Please come up to the stage. Hearing this, the new and students who were called walked up to the platform one by one. They are the important and noteworthy characters for now. Seeing them, Baek Yoon-on thought to himself, they all look so radiant. It really suits their positions as main characters. His eyes lit up. But the most outstanding one here is Baek Yoon-on looked up at the boy with brilliant sparkling red eyes, who everyone below was talking about. The freshman representative, Ma Yu-seong, he's the one with the highest entrance score. How can someone be so skilled and handsome at the same time? It was only then that he realized, so this is the famous Ma Yu-seong. Ma Yu-seong is the perfect example of the phrase, throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. What with his mana stats? 9 stars, possessing potential close to that of the gods. He's one of those natural-born geniuses who can control every element in the world. He resolved, even if I can't make it to the final ending, I at least have to avoid the bad endings by bringing Ma Yu-seong to the good side. He looked at the person next to him. However, that girl with the short hair, that must be Flame, Baek Yoon-on thought. But it all depends on her actions from now on. She's an outsider just like me. Maybe teaming up with her is a good idea, but things will get messy if she sees me as an enemy and rejects me to my face. Anyway, I have the advantage in terms of information, so I shouldn't be reckless. Flame is a reader of the fictional romance novel, while I am a player of the romance fantasy game. I swear to do so, although my importance in the storyline is less than that of an NPC in a village shop. Moreover, the heroine has a special ability that allows her to purify the dark mages. Besides that, she can also bring misery to those close to her. I'll definitely be affected too. He looked at the people on the honorary stage. My role is to support the main characters from a distance. Baek Yoon-on resolved, and limit my involvement with them as much as possible. At that moment, the principal spoke up. The entrance ceremony is now concluded. Baek Yoon-on, along with everyone else, heard the final announcement. They immediately burst into long, joyful applause. A system window suddenly appeared with a notification. Chapter 2, Entering Stellar Academy, has been completed. Gentle sunlight bathed Stellar Magic Academy. The students were all present and seated properly. Baek Yoon-on felt a bit wistful. It's been quite a while since I graduated from college, so it feels strange to be a high school student again, he mused. But still, Baek Yoon-on sighed, took out a stellar artifact, examined it, and continued his thought. It's good that I have this. The item in his hand was a stellar pocket watch, proof that he was a student of the most prestigious Academy Stellar. If you have this, you'll receive better service and treatment than those with just a magic warrior certificate. Baek Yun-on smirked to himself. He put the watch in his pocket. I want to use this soon. And take it outside too. At that moment, the classroom door slowly opened, the sound breaking the silence. Professor Lee Han-won appeared with a stern expression. In his hands was a stack of test papers. All students to your seats, he said. The assessment will begin now, so put everything away except for the permitted items. Those who use glasses must be inspected beforehand. Baek Yusun sat with his arms crossed. So there's a test right after the entrance ceremony. The curriculum at Stella Academy is much more rigorous than most Korean universities. We have to take a test on the very first day. It's called the Classification Survey, which is a test for class placement. Professor Lee Han-won stood at the podium and said loudly, "All right, you may begin." Baek Yusun looked at the questions on the paper but didn't understand a thing. He felt helpless. I don't understand what any of this says. This is so hard. The class placement test has nothing to do with the entrance exam. Famous for its insane difficulty, students are placed into Class F A and S depending on the test results. The classroom fell silent again as all the students focused on their work. Of course, most of the easy mode characters are in Class S. On the other hand, there was Baek Yusun, who entered the academy ranked last out of 1,141 students. Baek Yusun sat deep in thought. But I already got accepted. Can I just turn in a blank paper? It's not like the school would expel me, right? I'll probably just get automatically placed in Class F. Suddenly his attention fell on the person sitting below him, Ma Yuseong, who was looking elsewhere, out of boredom. He watched him. Ma Yuseong. Baek Yusun thought to himself, is he already done? He looked at the test on Ma Yuseong's desk. His test paper, it was already completed. Baek Yusun let out an involuntary sigh. No wonder his life is so boring. The character Ma Yuseong's trait is boredom. He was born into the most powerful family in the world and has the talent and brain of a genius. Everything is easy for him. That's why Baek Yusun thought. Depending on how the female lead characters act, Ma Yuseong's personality will be decided as either good or evil. The dark magic cult, which wants to destroy humanity, is obviously interested in Ma Yuseong. Baek Yusun looked at Ma Yuseong, who was sitting with his eyes closed out of boredom. His biggest problem stems from his family. He looked at his own test paper. Anyway, comparing myself to a genius like him, I'm just pathetic. Suddenly he realized something. Wait, I can use the Boomban glasses. I used them quite a lot to learn extra skills at the library. Baek Yusun quietly took the glasses out from inside his clothes. Great, I have nothing left to lose, so I'll just give it a try. Just as he was about to put the glasses on, Professor Lee Han-won appeared from behind him, startling him. Wait, what are those glasses? Lee Han-won looked at him sternly. I'm certain I said that if a student intends to use glasses, they must report it for inspection beforehand. Baek Yusun thought to himself, he's right, he did say that. Before Baek Yusun could even speak, Lee Han-won reached out and took the glasses from his hand. I'll inspect them. He held the glasses up, observing them for a long moment. Baek Yusun watched him in fear. What now? If he finds out the glasses have magic, I'll be expelled. Suddenly he heard a sound. That's the system sound. A lost part of the Nightingale glasses has been found. Would you like to summon it? Baek Yusun's jaw dropped in panic. No, please don't do anything, system. Professor Lee Han-won observed the glasses for a moment longer without a word, then handed them back to him. I can't sense any mana from it. Just remember to ask first next time. Baek Yusun gave a weak smile and took the glasses. Yes, sir. He was so relieved. Whoa, if its original function had activated, and I would have been in big trouble. He put the glasses on and activated them. The test paper immediately began to shimmer and the answers appeared right after. Whoa, I can really see the answers. Baek Yusun quickly copied them down. I've hit the jackpot. At this rate, I might even get first place, huh? He was a little overjoyed. I'll definitely get out of Class F, and I might even get into Class A. Professor Lee Han-won's voice broke the classroom silence. Time's up. Everyone submit your papers. Baek Yusun looked up in surprise. Immediately after the test papers flew up, Baek Yusun's jaw dropped. A current of magic swept up the test papers and flew them towards him. He panicked. I only finished 3 questions. Lee Han-won looked over the test right away, and his expression immediately changed. As Baek Yusun took off his glasses, he thought, I really thought I was out of Class F, for sure. Perhaps that was too much to ask of Baek Yusun. As soon as he took off the glasses, he was a little surprised. Professor Lee Han-won was standing in front of him with a grim expression. Student, give me those glasses, immediately, now. Baek Yusun didn't understand. Sir, Lee Han-won observed the glasses seriously. Impossible. He turned to another student and said, you come here, go get Dr. Graham. That student immediately replied, yes, sir. Baek Yusun looked at the professor, still not understanding what was happening, what suddenly gotten into him. I even wrote my answers carefully so I wouldn't be caught cheating. Did I get caught? In another room, Lee Han-won's voice rang out. What do you think? Asked Dr. Graham observed them seriously. He said, the way this student answered the questions is indeed very suspicious. I said, Professor Lee Han-won immediately continued. So was he cheat? Before he could finish, the doctor said, but he didn't cheat. I can't sense any magic at all. Coming from these glasses, Graham stated firmly. He did the test with his own abilities. Dr. Graham chuckled and patted Baek Yusun's shoulder in praise. Ho, how very interesting. I've never seen a case like this in my life. Anyway, Professor Lee Han-won, please apologize to that student and guide them well. I understand, Lee Han-won replied. He looked at Becky Uson. It was my misunderstanding. I apologize. To be honest, I really did cheat though. It's a good thing I turned off the activation function otherwise. Becky Uson replied gently, his voice calm. It's all right, sir. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm so lucky I didn't get caught. The morning at Stellar Magic Academy was peaceful, inside Professor Lee Han-won's office. Professor Lee Han-won was sitting at his desk with Dr. Graham reviewing the new students' exams. Lee Han-won looked at one paper that got the first question right, his expression serious. Suddenly a voice called out, "Oh, Professor Lee Han-won." Professor Eden Taiman walked over with a pleasant expression. Are these the exams for this year's new students? Lee Han-won replied, "Yes," she said excitedly. "I heard there's an extraordinary number of outstanding students this year." Lee Han-won looked up and replied, "It seems so. There's Hong Byeon, from the most famous family of fire mages, the Princess of Adolabit, the Kingdom of Flames. Next is the one who at only 12 years old and became the chosen heir to the throne of the Skalvan Empire due to his magical talent. Jeremy Skalvan, the prince who defeated all of his older brothers in the battle for the throne. And from the world's greatest magic tower, the Full Moon Tower, comes its heir, H.A.E. Gunryang." Professor Eden Taiman smiled. "I heard it was difficult to create the exam because there are so many students from famous families this year. I'm sure there are a lot of interesting questions." "I'm glad you like it," Lee Han-won replied. After speaking, he looked back down at the exam in his hand. Just as Professor Eden Taiman had said, this year's placement test had new kinds of questions. The first 3 questions were very difficult for ordinary students to solve. All 3 questions had hidden intentions. It was a test of flexibility. If it was a problem that couldn't be solved, would the test taker know to skip it and move on to the next question? Secondly, how would a student solve a problem that has never appeared in a textbook? Lee Han-won was still lost in his thoughts. The era of learning magic based solely on theory and memorization is over. Now is the era of competing with creative thinking and quick judgment. However, these questions didn't require students to give an answer. In fact, more than 1,000 out of 1,141 students left this question blank. Among the 100 students who provided a solution, almost none were correct. He frowned. Among the new students, only 3 answered all 3 questions correctly. They were Ma Yuseong, a national genius seen as a comet with an unclear background. Next was Flame admitted through a letter of recommendation from the headmaster. Despite being a commoner, that student's talent was recognized as being nearly on par with Ma Yuseong. The last one was Becky Uson. Lee Han-won thought pensively, Ma Yuseong and Flame are called geniuses. And they certainly are. Becky Uson is the student with the lowest entrance score. I don't think he could have solved all of these hidden questions, especially when he couldn't answer any of the other questions. Professor Eden Tiemann looked at Lee Han-won quizzically. "I'm wondering why you're so interested in the new students' scores." Lee Han-won replied, "It seems there's a student with a slightly illogical score." Eden Tiemann then said, "That's understandable. After all, even with a series of formulas and calculations that you can't solve, you might still suddenly come up with a solution." Lee Han-won looked up at Professor Eden Tiemann. "Do you think this child is a prodigy?" Eden Tiemann shrugged. "It could also just be a coincidence." Eden Tiemann turned her back and Lee Han-won silently watched her leave. He let out a sigh. On his desk was Becky Uson's file. Underneath it was a small note in clear handwriting. "Admitted on special recommendation for extremely skillful control of Blink." Lee Han-won mused. "So the child the headmaster gave special admission to is quite unusual, isn't he?" The corners of his mouth turned up. "A student who is a combat mage, specializing in Blink." Lee Han-won looked at Becky Uson's photo. "We'll find out soon enough. We'll find whether it's a coincidence or if that kid is truly special." Students were gathering and chattering noisily. Everyone was both excited and nervous. "I heard the class placement list will be announced today. I'm so nervous, I wonder which class I'll be in. My mom told me not to even bother coming home if I don't get into Class A." Becky Uson, standing not far away, thought with annoyance. "I can't believe I have to go check the placement board myself. In the game, I could see it with just a single click." All the students were crowded in front of the placement lists. Suddenly, a student recognized Becky Uson. "Hey, isn't that Becky Uson?" He stood silently watching everyone gossip about him. "I heard he got a 1 on the Magic Aptitude entrance exam." "Seriously? How did someone like him get into Stellar?" "It makes me question Stellar's standards." Ignoring the chatter, Becky Uson slowly walked up to see the list. "Whatever. They can say what they want. I'll just check my class and leave." He thought about his terrible test score. Naturally, he went to look at the list for Class E and F. It's fine. Becky Uson calmly looked up to find his name. My name's not here." His name was completely absent from the Class F list. Becky Uson felt like he'd been struck by lightning. "Don't tell me I got expelled just for answering only 3 questions. No way. Am I doomed, Becky Uson? Oh my god, why is he here? There must be some kind of mistake." Finally, there's Beck Uson's name. Uson glanced towards the source of his name. A group of students stood before the class assignment board, their voices tinged with dissatisfaction. "Yeah, that's him." Uslex, from the Marquis House of Jack Baylan, ranked 29, also got into Class A. Even Kai from Class A got a perfect score on the theory part and ranked 17th. So how did someone like him? Baek Yusun frowned in confusion. What's going on? Something's strange. Should I go check? Oh, Baek Yusun was startled. Oh, that's my name. Baek Yusun stood frozen, not believing his eyes. Why is my name here? He was too tense to speak. This can't be. What is happening? The most special placement that all students dream of getting. Class S, where the most special students of the best magic school, Stellar Academy, gather. Unlike other grades that have multiple classes, the S grade has only 41 students and a single class. But Baek Yusun frowned, thinking, why was I placed in Class S? There must be a mistake. I'm going to lose my mind. I'll be seeing the main characters in class more often now. Getting involved with the main characters will only shorten my life, Baek Yun mused. I can't change my class. Immediately he turns and quickly walked away. Well then, I'll just try to be as invisible as possible. I can do this. Baek Yun seemed to be lost in his own thoughts, not noticing a girl not far from him who had her eyes on him. The girl opened her mouth as if wanting to say something. In the room, a tense atmosphere prevailed. The sound of slapping echoed throughout the room. It seemed Hong Bezoen was on the receiving end of some thunderous slaps. From her mother Hong Jiel, a professor of the fire element. Her face was ferocious. You got 3 questions wrong. Even Princess Iseol of the Ducal House of Mon got 2 questions right. Hong Bezoen collapsed on the floor, enduring her mother's harsh words. You couldn't answer questions that even an insect would know. You're worse than an insect. Remember that and do it again. She continued to ask, do you understand, Bezoen? Bezoen replied soullessly, yes, mother. Her face was stern as she looked at her daughter. Hong Jiel smirked and then continued. Listen here, Bezoen. She threatened you will not follow my path. Getting kicked out of the kingdom and then only managing this stupid professor position. You will not become a disgrace to the entire kingdom. Suddenly, Hong Jiel bent down, her hand reaching out. She touched Bezoen's face, red from the slaps. What you need to do is become a more useful existence than your sister. At this, she gave a sinister smile. Hong Jiel's voice was full of sarcasm. Do you understand what I mean? Hong Bezoen, in despair and dazed, answered, I understand, mother. After Hong Jiel left, a thought flashed through Hong Bezoen's mind. I don't understand. I live and solve everything, according to what I've been taught. The problem is the magic I've never learned, or the spells I've never known, and the formulas I've never been taught. Why? Tears streamed down her cheeks. Why Hong Bezoen despaired? Why do you always torment me? Mother, the scene shifts to the Class S lecture hall. The new students were now buzzing with lively chatter. Only our Baek Yusun was despondently holding his head in frustration, thinking to himself, I'm going to lose my mind. I've been transferred to a place full of antisocial weirdos. At that moment, whispers and gossip caught Baek Yusun's attention. How did that guy get in here? I don't know. I'm damn curious too, the new students continued to chatter. Did you hear our parents protested and asked why he was admitted to Class S? The only answer was that Baek Yusun is qualified for Class S. Seriously, that's not an answer at all. Hearing this, Baek Yusun could only manage a wry smile, thinking, well, it looks like I'm the one being isolated. He stretched calmly, thinking, they've had to work hard since they were young. So of course they'd be annoyed that an idiot like me suddenly gets to sit on the same level as them. But it's fine. Everyone's class will be reassigned based on their performance after each exam. At this point, Baek Yusun put on a profound expression. And Class S is no exception. Of course, there are some cases of students dropping in rank. Suddenly, he remembered something. Speaking of which, there was one student from Class A who later got promoted to Class S. I'll look for them later. Baek Yusun observed, magic is really amazing. Every time I think about how these game characters are right in front of me, and in a few years, most of the students in this class will be globally famous, and about 5 of them will likely betray the magic world. At this, Baek Yusun looked towards that guy. Ma Yuseong is one of them. Then Baek Yusun's eyes shifted to Flame. He thought it would be good if Flame could stop that from happening. Just as he was thinking that, Professor Lee Han-wan opened the door and walked in saying, everyone take your seats. Baek Yusun was surprised. Professor Lee Han-wan began his introduction. A pleasure to meet you all. Perhaps some of you already know who I am. But I will introduce myself anyway. His face was stern. I am the professor for Class S, Lee Han-wan. The new students couldn't hide their excitement, chattering, that's the famous Professor Lee Han-wan. It's the sheer number. The number of dark mages he's hunted is in the thousands, isn't it? The freshman continued to whisper. To think the professor is a rank 7 magic warrior. He's truly on another level. Just then, the whispering was cut short by the professor's admonishment. All of you quiet down, the professor said. It seems everyone here is a talented student, and we have one with special admission as well. Then he continued, as you know, this academy is a place where we train battle mages. As magic warriors, you will all undergo a high school education. A strict one for 3 years. I don't expect all of you to keep up. However, I do expect you to show me your best efforts during that time. Lee Han-wan said in a low voice, any questions? No one raised their hand. A satisfied look appeared on the professor's face. Good, in that case, let's begin the class. Before he could finish his sentence, the classroom door burst open. Hong Bi-yeon was standing outside, a red mark still visible on one of her cheeks. Seeing this, Baek Yun-seong wondered, Hong Bi-yeon, the one who follows the rules more than anyone else. When he saw Hong Bi-yeon speaking with the professor, he grew even more curious. Did something happen? Baek Yoon-seong immediately took out his glasses. I'll have to check with the Warbler goggles. Just then, information about Hong Byeon appeared. Hong Byeon, a Dolebit, villain, fire mage, likes red ginseng candy, occasionally gets burned, only drinks espresso. Hey, brewed in the Yahello style, has a wicked mother, guaranteed to die. He stared at the system panel. It was the same as before. Baek Yoon-seong thought, guaranteed to die. He glanced back at Hong Byeon. If Isolet's death was caused by flame, then Hong Byeon's is caused by both flame and Isolet. At that moment, a deep red notification panel appeared. You could say this is the unavoidable fate of a villain. Baek Yoon-seong took off his glasses. If I could, I'd want to help her. But in my current situation, I can't help anyone, Lee Han-won said to her. Go to your seat. Baek Yoon-seong was once again lost in thought. It sucks that I can't do anything but keep my distance. Suddenly, Baek Yoon-seong froze. Huh. Since when was Hong Byeon standing next to him? She was staring intently at Baek Yoon-seong. He tensed up. Hong Byeon pulled out a chair and sat down next to him. At that moment, his mind filled with doubt. What is going on? I feel like everything has changed right from the very beginning. At the podium, Professor Lee Han-won spoke sternly. Well then, before we begin the lesson, we will hold a ceremony. The inheritance ceremony for the wands you will all be using. His voice echoed throughout the classroom. Class S and Class A will hold it jointly. As for the details, Baek Yoon-seong muttered, the inheritance ceremony. He was intrigued. It's kind of a hassle, but I'm really looking forward to it. There are two major events at Stellar Academy. One of them is the Soulmate Pact ceremony, and the other is the inheritance ceremony. For a high-class academy like Stellar, the inheritance ceremony holds a special place. The scene changes to the time of the ceremony. Professor Lee Han-won asked, is everyone present? He continued, wands from the lowest to the highest ranks have been prepared here. Everyone listened attentively. Your job is to walk up to the wand you like and take it. The professor reminded them the procedure for exchanging a wand is very cumbersome. I expect you all to choose very carefully. Baek Yoon-seong thought to himself, even though he says that, in reality, we aren't the ones who choose the wand. It's the other way around. Baek Yoon-seong's thoughts surfaced. In the world of Aegir, wands only react to those they acknowledge, creating a resonance effect. He thought to himself as he walked, that means that even if a person wanted to, they couldn't use a high-level wand. Baek Yoon-seong continued to walk, but his mind was filled with many concerns. I'm really not sure which one I should pick. He recalled his past memories. If this were before, I would have immediately chosen an S-rank magic staff. But now, I'm in Class S. I need to think this through. Baek Yoon-seong looked towards the magic staff. A wand is the most suitable for my position, he thought. Magic staves are divided into two types, short wands and longer staves. Wands are usually used by the knight class, those who use magic quickly and continuously. In contrast, staves are used by the bishop class, those who focus on a single attack and need more time to cast their spells. But his train of thought was suddenly interrupted by the chatter from the new students. Hey, what do you think he'll choose? At that moment, Baek Yoon-seong looked towards the whispering crowd. Since he's in Class S, he probably won't have any problems with resonance, will he? Baek Yoon-seong didn't pay them any attention. He thought to himself, whatever, say whatever you people want. But at that moment, he heard someone call out to him. Hey, Baek Yoon-seong was stunned. Huh? He asked, who are you? That stranger replied with a sneer, me. I'm Uslek. Baek Yoon-seong wondered, who's that? It's the first time I've heard that name. Then Baek Yoon-seong said, all right, so what? Uslek asked, which magic staff are you planning to choose? Hearing this, Baek Yoon-seong replied, I'll just pick one randomly. At that moment, Uslek put on a condescending expression and said, you should choose one that befits your commoner status. Baek Yoon-seong seemed a bit surprised to hear this. Uslek continued to provoke him. Don't cause a scene and trouble the professors. Baek Yoon-seong calmly walked past him. Yeah, and you try not to cause any trouble either, okay? After hearing that his face flushed red, Uslek yelled, you bastard! He continued to provoke him. You want to start a fight? Baek Yoon-seong now felt this was truly a pain. He then took out his glasses. So noisy. An information panel appeared before his eyes. Uslek Seb Bieland, son of Marcus Seb Bieland, a subordinate of Prince Jeremy, third-rate bully. He then put his glasses away, looking a bit disappointed. That's all the information there is. Baek Yoon-seong looked at him and sighed. Not very special, huh? Uslek pointed to the magic staff. Anyway, that's the one I'm going to choose. You better take a good look. Baek Yoon-seong stared intently at the staff. That magic staff is... Baek Yoon-seong was astonished. Is that Edmuri Etomiri? He continued his assessment. That one must be the highest ranked one here. High intermediate tier. A high-level intermediate staff is usually used by magic warriors. But no matter how talented someone is, a low-level intermediate staff is already the limit for students. Baek Yoon-seong concluded, even professional magic warriors rarely get to use a low-rank intermediate staff. Aside from Edmuri Etomiri, there's another high-level intermediate staff here. It's mainly for display. Who could possibly take it? Then Professor Lee Hwan spoke up to remind them. Students, please stand directly in front of the staff you like. Hagen Riang had already chosen what he wanted. Jeremy Scalvan had as well. And Hong Bezoen had finished choosing too. But suddenly, next to Baek Yoon-seong, a beam of light shot out. The new students who saw it were incredibly shocked and couldn't help but exclaim in awe. The staff that Hee-won chose? Isn't that the Haren Amikoten? That's an intermediate rank staff. Prince Skalven also chose an intermediate rank staff. Just like that, continuous beams of light shone out. Princess Hong, Beyonce, John CEO, Victor Lahavon also got one. An intermediate rank staff. Just how many people obtained an intermediate rank staff? Usually only certified mages can use intermediate rank staves. Many people exclaimed, "This year is just crazy." Uslek gritted his teeth. "Damn it," he shouted in anger. "Just you wait, I can do it too." With that, Uslek walked away. The crowd's gossip shifted to him. "Oh, isn't that Uslek over there?" Everyone started gossiping about him again. Will he be able to get a high-level intermediate staff? Standing before the magic staff he had chosen, Uslek smiled, confidently thinking, "Watch closely. I'll show all of you what the talent of a Class S student is really like." He gripped the wand tightly. Suddenly, a powerful beam of light erupted along with lightning that snaked throughout the room. Baek Yoon-seong from afar also felt the powerful energy. "Just as expected," he said slowly. "He's failed." Sure enough, Uslek had collapsed to the ground. He gritted his teeth, unable to accept it. The people around began to gossip. "Oh my god, it looks like he's seriously injured." "Hey, someone call a professor quick." Baek Yoon-seong mused, "Perhaps a high-level intermediate staff is truly unattainable. You should just give up," he mumbled. At that moment, Uslek suddenly saw someone approaching. He stammered, Hey, stop." But Ma Yoon-seong just kept humming. Baek Yoon-seong looked toward Ma Yoon-seong. The owner of that staff was already decided. He looked majestic with a smug face, and his red eyes made him even more striking. His flamboyant air made everyone whisper amongst themselves. "It's Ma Yoon-seong. Is he going to try to take that staff?" He gently touched the staff. They were stunned. I can't believe he actually managed to claim Edmuri Etemiri, and yet Ma Yoon-seong was already gripping the staff tightly. A brilliant light quickly spread everywhere, making Baek Yoon-seong gasp. Ma Yoon-seong's face showed clear satisfaction as he admired the staff. The crowd was in utter shock. No way. A brand new student actually managed to obtain such a high-level magical artifact. How could they not believe it? How is this possible? Baek Yoon-seong sighed. Just as I predicted. He looked over at him. Now even more people will know just how talented he is. Ma Yoon-seong keenly noticed Baek Yoon-seong standing there stunned, and he smiled at him. Baek Yoon-seong was speechless, thinking, "What the hell? Is he crazy?" He was immediately reminded of a certain girl. After all, Flame had also obtained a similarly ranked staff, Terevon. An image of Flame surfaced in Baek Yoon-seong's mind. However, this could be where their paths diverge. He recalled the original plot. If Flame successfully obtains Terevon Ma Yoon-seong, will recognize her talent and become interested in her. That unlocks the Ma Yoon-seong route. But if she chooses a different staff, it will open up a completely different one. Baek Yoon-seong thought about his next move. I need to take advantage of Flame to get Ma Yoon-seong on my side. He suddenly saw Flame walk by. Ah, there she is. Flame was staring intently at a staff. Baek Yoon-seong got serious. Terevon is over there. The closer she got to the staff, the more anxious he became with a hint of curiosity. What are you going to do, Flame? He thought. She walked closer to the staff. He mentally urged her on. That's right, go get Terevon. Baek Yoon-seong waited in anticipation, assuming that Ma Yoon-seong would then become interested in Flame, and we'll have a much higher chance of reaching a happy ending. But she walked right past it, leaving Baek Yoon-seong stunned. He watched her ignore the staff, wondering, what the... She doesn't want Terevon. Baek Yoon-seong's jaw dropped. What in the world is going on? Doesn't she know about it? Does she not have enough information about it? How is that possible? Flame was still searching for a magic staff. He thought to himself, this is terrible, no matter how you look at it. Flame is supposed to be the main heroine. Asterisk. She should be able to resonate with all the staves. Baek Yoon-seong gritted his teeth. What if she ends up choosing some weird-ass staff? Then we'll miss out on another good route. He took a stance preparing to use magic. At that moment, a golden light emanated from his body. Baek Yoon-seong made up his mind. I have no choice but to push Terevon towards her. Baek Yoon-seong aimed directly behind Flame and used a flash spell. He appeared right behind her. Flame seemed to sense something. She jumped startled. Since when? Baek Yoon-seong forced a bright smile and said, I was just wondering which staff you were going to choose. Why would you want to know that? She retorted. Baek Yoon-seong had to make up an excuse. I just wanted to help you. Because you looked a little lost. Flame replied indifferently. It has nothing to do with you. She turned to leave. Bye. Surprised, Baek Yoon-seong tried to stop her, blurting out, He stammered, wait. Baek Yoon-seong scratched his face. Something's weird. An image of her and her friends suddenly flashed in his mind. Flame is supposed to be friendly with everyone. She's an extrovert, so why is she being so cold? Baek Yoon-seong's resolve hardened. No, I can't give up this easily. My life depends on this. He called out, hey, wait. Getting tense, he said. Really, I just want to help you pick one. Flame looked at him angrily. Mind your own business. Baek Yoon-seong persisted. But I feel like there's a staff here that would really suit you. She grew even more impatient. Flame yelled in his face. What the hell would you know about staves? Baek Yoon-seong could only laugh awkwardly. What the heck? Did I do something wrong? Or maybe she just doesn't care about support items, he continued. I've heard a lot about you. He pointed towards the staff. Do you think you have what it takes to tame that one over there? Flame glanced over at the staff and blurted out, Terevon! Baek Yuson smiled. That's the one. He was surprised. Huh. A look of fear crossed Baek Yuson's face. What's that noise? Suddenly something shot towards him at high speed. His eyes widened in fear. Baek Yuson slowly opened his eyes to look up. In his hand was a staff Terevon, but Baek Yuson hadn't realized it yet. That scared the hell out of me. Confused, Baek Yuson stared at the staff. He was completely panicked. Baek Yuson stammered, why is this in my hand? Flame is the one who's supposed to have this Baek Yuson cursed under his breath. Shit. He stammered, Baek Yuson tried to call out to Flame, but her expression was ice cold. Flame replied with a dangerous smile. Yes? Terrified Baek Yuson replied, nothing. He thought anxiously to himself. I'm screwed. I'm so screwed. And that afternoon, after class, the students began to head out. Flame was walking back to the dorms, holding her books when she overheard some people talking. Hey, did you hear? Flame looked at them. They continued their cheerful conversation. This year, 2 students were successful. They got 2 high-grade artifacts. Whoa, seriously. In the past, only 5 people have ever managed to do that. So now there are 2 more, a boy said. But it's really strange. One of the 2 students only used Blink during the entire magic evaluation test. The other guy looked surprised. Huh? Blink is a basic magic spell. How is that possible? My parents said Blink is a user spell, he said alarmed. There must be some mistake. Hearing this, Flame just remained silent. A little later at the academy's self-study hall, the afternoon sun began to fade its last rays, peeking through the windows and down the corridor. Flame sighed as she walked, murmuring, finally some peace and quiet. She thought back to what those students were saying this morning. That's all they've been talking about today, everywhere I go. The news that 2 students obtained high-grade staffs is spreading quickly, but I just can't understand it. Flame recalled the moment Baek Yuson obtained his magic staff. She was so shocked. There's no way. He actually got Terevon. Just who is he? Baek Yuson. I'm so confused. I read the original novel 3 times before I came here. But the name Baek Yuson never appeared once. Flame couldn't keep her composure. And it said no one else could get Terevon, yet he resonated with it so easily. Flame gritted her teeth. It's like an image of him holding the staff with a sinister smile popped into her head, making her think he was trying to show off to her. Annoyed, Flame shook her head to dismiss the thought. Why am I even thinking about this stuff? Just then a voice called out from behind her. Some of her classmates saw her and asked cheerfully, Are you heading to the study hall too? Hearing her name, Flame turned around and gave them a gentle smile. She said playfully, You guys think I'm some kind of bookworm or something? The blonde girl chimed in. No, it's just that you always say you have nothing to do, so you study. Flame immediately denied it. That's not it at all. Her brown-haired friend tilted her head confused. But Flame, why do you keep calling us kids? We're the same age. Hearing that, Flame got flustered. Oh, it's just a habit. I was always treated like an adult where I used to live. She was smiling on the outside, but her mind was in turmoil. Now I realize that I'm inside a novel, so I can't possibly act like a child. Just then, a voice cut through her thoughts. So are you planning to study alone again today? Flame looked at the red-haired girl who had just spoken. She tried to recall. She's Jackie, right? Flame thought to herself, why is her style a bit similar to mine? She quickly waved her hands. Oh no, there's a supplementary meeting about to start, so I was heading there. Flame smiled. Anyway, I'll get going. Seeing this, the others said their goodbyes to her. Okay then, let's grab coffee next time, okay? Flame left, but not without looking back to wave goodbye. As she walked down the hall, she thought, girls at this age. Flame was muttering to herself, so she wasn't paying attention to what was in front of her. It's quite difficult being a student at this age. She accidentally bumped hard into something. It seemed she had run into a male student, causing Flame to rub her head in pain. The boy recognized the person in front of him and called out, Flame! She looked up to see Haewon Ryang. He immediately asked with concern, Are you okay? Flame nodded. I'm fine. But Haewon Ryang still noticed something was off. He asked gently, You don't look so well. Is something wrong? Flame was surprised. Is he worried about me? But she still said, No, it's nothing. Haewon Ryang asked, Is that so? Are you on your way to study? She asked back, And are you heading to the special training building for Class S again? Haewon Ryang looked at Flame with determination. You can't slack off on daily training. The 2 of them bantered back and forth. You're not being honest at all. You shouldn't say that. Is that so? In the middle of their conversation, they both suddenly fell silent. Haewon Ryang stared intently at Flame, which confused her. Suddenly, he broke into a strange, bright smile. Then he reached out his hand as if to stroke her hair, which startled Flame. Haewon Ryang looked at her tenderly. We'll see you later. After that, he turned and walked away. Left in a daze, Flame thought so blunt. Then Flame turned to leave and suddenly saw someone. Jackie stood by the door staring at Flame. Flame was confused. Jackie, why was she wanted to wave hello, but before she could call out, Jackie had already run off. She was baffled. Oh well, whatever. Flame kept walking. This wasn't the time for this. After a while, she arrived at the classroom in the self-study building. Standing before the door, she thought the special supplementary meeting. Flame recalled that according to the original novel, ISO and Hong Beyonce would be attending this conference. It's crucial to see the female lead and the villain face off against each other. With that thought, Flame pushed the door open and slowly stepped into the classroom. Flame looked at everyone in the room. She thought to herself, all the important characters are here. Then she looked up toward the podium. Kai seemed quite flustered. Flame observed the instructor. It was just Kai from Class A. He looked like he had just gotten back from somewhere. Flame walked to her seat. This was a supplementary meeting for students who needed to improve their scores. She noticed that the majority of attendees were S-class students. As soon as she sat down, Flame looked over and noticed someone below her. She was quite surprised. Ma Yuseong is here too. Ma Yuseong, who could be considered the male lead of this world. Very interested in Baek Yuseon. Flame looked at Baek Yuseon. It definitely wasn't a coincidence. And Baek Yuseon did nothing other than solve the 3 hell questions. She clenched her fist. From the very beginning, Baek Yuseon knew that if he solved those questions, Flame was sure of it, he would get into S-class. Flustered Flame pressed her lips together tightly. As her gaze darkened with a clear sadness, a suspicion suddenly formed in her mind. If Baek Yuseon really knew everything in advance and acted that way, then he truly is dangerous. As she thought this, she stared at his tranquil expression. Just then Yuseon sighed wearily. He wasn't happy and seemed to be avoiding Yuseong's bright smile. He silently wished someone would please just get this guy away from him. Yuseong smiled brightly and asked Yuseon curiously, "Why did you come here? You don't really need to listen to this stuff. Is there some special reason?" Yuseon turned and replied with a forced laugh, "Haha, not at all." But inside he thought, it's because my scores are rock bottom that I have to be in this class now. Yuseon narrowed his eyes, staring at Yuseong. He was surprised to see the guy grinning so happily at him. Why is this guy suddenly so interested in me? Suddenly, a voice cut through the chatter. "That's enough chit-chat, don't you think?" The guy standing at the front began the meeting. "Today we'll be discussing the problems from the ranking test." He added, "As you know, this test has a particularly difficult section that everyone calls the 3 hell questions." Everyone listened intently. Seeing Sauveterre and the other talented students, he gave a strained smile and said, "And I will proceed to explain them." In his mind, he cursed, "Damn it, why are those guys here? I just planned on boosting my own reputation by helping out the stupid nobles." Suddenly, something caught Kai's attention. Seeing Yuseon's serious expression, Kai thought to himself, "No, this is my chance. I heard Yuseon got the lowest score on the entrance exam." A sinister, calculating smile spread across his face. His mind made up. "In that case, I'll show him how much better I am." Kai picked up a book and began presenting on the blackboard. "First, this is how I solved them." As he wrote, he explained, "This is actually a type of trick question. It tries to lead you to the wrong answer." The students below diligently took notes. Kai continued to lecture through the material. Yuseong smiled, observing Yuseon's diligent appearance. Then he spoke up, asking a question that made Yuseon look up. "What do you think? Do you think what he's doing is correct?" Yuseon turned to see Yuseong's gentle face and felt completely bewildered. What the hell is he talking about? Asking me if I think he's right? I don't even understand what he's teaching up there. And what the heck are the 3 hell questions anyway? He didn't answer, turning away in frustration to think. Still, honesty is a virtue. Yuseon answered nonchalantly, "No, I don't know." At the podium, Kai immediately froze upon hearing this. It seemed Yuseon had spoken too loudly, as the other students in the class all heard and began to whisper. "What, that's Yuseon," said one student. "Did he say Kai is wrong?" Kai's eyes widened as he gritted his teeth in anger. Seeing everyone looking at him, Yuseon glanced around in confusion. Why is everyone looking at me?" Kai furiously crushed the piece of chalk in his hand. Then he questioned him, "Am I wrong?" Hearing this, Yuseon froze, staring at him in shock. That guy smirked. "Well then, Yuseon." Kai glared at him and challenged, "Why don't you come down here and help everyone solve it?" He was silent in his confusion. Yuseon's face turned pale with shock as he thought, what is he saying? What the hell is going on? Suddenly he noticed Yuseon beside him. When he saw the guy's radiant smile, a thumbs up, and his whisper, "You can do it, Yuseon." "He's doing this on purpose, I'm sure of it," he thought angrily. Too, with a sigh, he walked up to the podium. "All right, fine. I'll just wing it right." From above, Flame's eyes followed him, and so did Hong Beyonce's. He picked up the chalk and began to write on the blackboard. Looking at the words on the board, Yuseon was lost in thought. The 3 hell questions, huh? To Yuseon, these questions felt more like word puzzles. In his mind, he was already imagining the image from the question. For example, like this, a mage chanting a spell. "Oh, Mother Earth, please shed a tear," and then the amount of dust will be double what it was. Why is that? The answer is simple, Yuseon thought with a smug smile. Are the dust particles crying? Not at all. It's just a state of separation. Coming to this conclusion, Yuseon wearily rubbed his head. What a ridiculous question. But to them, this is a huge problem. I wonder who came up with these things. But then he suddenly looked up. He saw Kai's furious, scowling face and thought that Kai guy is solving it as if it's some math problem, like it splits apart when it cries or something. Looking back at his solutions, he had to marvel inwardly. His method is wrong, but the answer is right. Pretty damn lucky. But if he encounters another question of the same type, he won't be able to pass. So Yuseon turned and said bluntly, "I can't really show you how to solve it, but I'll tell you where you went wrong." Hearing this, Kai was surprised. He explained, "The question mentions earth, but what if it was water or wind?" Yuseon asked, "Would your method still apply then?" Stunned, he hesitantly replied, "Then I'd use a different method." Yuseon probed further. "In that case, you'd have to use many different methods for the same type of problem." The guy froze, gritting his teeth. Yuson mercilessly exposed the truth. You got the right answer purely by luck. That's not the answer the person who wrote the question wanted. Realizing he'd been exposed, Kai stammered, unable to speak. That. Kai's mood soured as he stammered in agreement. You're right. For a moment, Yuson felt he'd gone a bit too far. Oops, I think I just crushed his confidence. Then he calmly reassured him. Anyway, this part goes like this. As he read the solution, Kai immediately took out his notebook to write it down. The students behind them also diligently followed along. At that moment, Flame realized with astonishment that everyone in the room was writing non-stop. She thought blankly, how is this possible? They're all writing down everything he says. Even the two most talented girls, Iso and Hongbyeon, were listening in silence. They should have been part of the debate, but now both were focused on the solution. Flame felt a growing sense of unease. Is this really okay? By the time the sky turned orange, Yuseong packed up his books, waved, and smiled at Yuson. See you tomorrow, Yuson. He was still beaming like a blooming flower as he left. Yuson smiled and waved back. As soon as he was gone, he buried his face in his hands in frustration. Damn it, if I get stuck with someone like my Yuseong, what, tomorrow? I don't want to see you again for the rest of my life, my Yuseong. He sighed helplessly, looking at his empty hands. He thought to himself, it might be because of the phone. He walked away, his mind heavy with thoughts. I can't use it anymore, but I've already accidentally caught Ma Yuseong's attention. I don't get why he keeps approaching me. Before this, no one but Flame ever used it. As he was thinking, Yuson suddenly saw Hongbyeon standing in front of the classroom door. She was just standing there, as if waiting for someone. Seeing her, he suddenly thought, isn't that Hongbyeon? Looks like she's waiting for someone. But then he just ignored her and left. Not my business. I'm out of here. Suddenly, she called out, Big Yuson! He froze in place. She slowly walked toward him and said coldly, Yuson, I want to ask you something. He was stunned. Hongbyeon wants to ask me something. He opened his mouth to ask, what is it? She crossed her arms and questioned him, why didn't you explain your method earlier? Hearing this, he froze, completely dumbfounded. It's not that I didn't say it, it's that I couldn't. How do you explain a riddle that makes no sense? He thought, looks like she's misunderstood something. Then he tilted his head, rubbing his neck as he replied, there's just nothing to explain. Hongbyeon was silent for a moment. Finally seeming to understand, she replied, I see. She crossed her arms, looking displeased and even a bit reproachful as she said, you just didn't want to reveal it there, did you? Her words surprised him. Huh? That's not it at all. Suddenly she made a proposition. Let's make a trade. Yuson asked blankly, what? She calmly stated, I'll make it worth your while. Then she added, so whatever's in your head, explain it all to me. All too. His mood plummeted and his expression became awkward and flustered. Inside the library, a yellow light bulb cast a lazy glow. Yuson and Hongbyeon sat down at a table. They looked at the test paper spread out on the desk. Yuson put on his glasses, picked up 3 sheets of paper, and asked with confusion, I don't get why you'd pay me to explain 3 questions from the placement test. Hongbyeon simply said, I have my reasons. Just talk. He replied with a sigh, yes, milady. He said, looking closely at the papers. But these 3 are the only questions you got wrong. Asking me the guy who got all the other questions wrong. Aren't you embarrassed? She lowered her eyes and calmly said, not at all. The only thing I'm ashamed of is not yet understanding how to solve those questions. She said serenely, as long as I can find the answer, I'll do whatever it takes. Yuson looked straight at her silently, assessing her. A model student indeed, he thought, then asked curiously. But why are you asking me? Hongbyeon looked up. He continued looking at the test paper as he spoke. You're a princess. You have plenty of friends, so why not ask them? She hesitated. Well, then she analyzed the current situation. Out of the 1,141 candidates, if we count the number of people who correctly answered the 3 hellishly difficult questions, there are only 3 people. Including you, she added. Yuson realized with a shock. What did you say? Hongbyeon shyly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and began to explain. These trick questions, man, they don't have a solution but my use and flame, and you all managed to solve them. It really made me wonder. This sentence made him tremble with confusion. Wait, hold on. He shot up from his seat, pointed at the paper and yelled, these 3 questions were just tricks to fool us. They were never meant to be solved. Hongbyeon calmly replied. That's right. Didn't you realize that while you were taking the test? At that moment, he quickly regained his composure, slowly sat back down and cursed himself internally. I'm such an idiot. Now I get why I was placed in Class S. Then a thought occurred to him that made him gloomy, and the reason why Flame stopped me. Now looking at her curious eyes, he just felt lost. I don't know the detailed setup of this world, and I had no idea about those trick questions. But Flame is different. As far as Yuzo knew, she was a transmigrator from the novel. Because she had read the entire novel, even if she didn't know the game's plot, she must have known all the story's settings. That, of course, includes those 3 trick questions. He remained silent, thinking to himself. But because a side character who wasn't in the original novel appeared, Flame could do nothing but accept the existence of her son. Yuson was so confused. What the hell? No wonder she acted like that. Seeing his erratic emotions, Hongbyeon asked, Are you okay? He replied wearily, It's nothing. He frowned deep in thought for a moment. Then he reminded her, Don't forget you said you'd grant me 1 request if I taught you how to solve it. She quietly said, I know. Yusun stated his desire. My request is simple. Turn my magic staff into a magic sword. Then he gave his reason. It's simple because the blacksmiths in your kingdom can do it easily. This surprised her. But only low-level mercenaries use that kind of weapon. Why would a mage like you use it? He nodded casually, crossing his arms. It's just my style. But deep down he thought, I'm not going to tell her it's because I have a flaw. Yusun showed a hint of impatience and asked, so can you do it or not? Hongbion fell silent, thinking for a moment before she finally agreed. Of course, that's a piece of cake. He rejoiced inwardly. Nice. He reached out and pointed to a line on the test paper. All right. Now I'll tell you how to solve this one first. Then Yusun began nonchalantly. My method is to change your perspective. Hongbion looked down, puzzled. Change my perspective. Exactly, he replied. He understood Hongbion's weakness perfectly. She used magic in a way that was too by the book. Even holding a magic staff, she couldn't bring out its full power. As a result, she became dependent on it. It wasn't until her second year that she realized this, after a crushing defeat by Flame collapsing in humiliation before her. Now sitting across from her, Yusun knew what he had to do. I can't reveal too much to her right now, but I can point her in the right direction. And so, he opened his mouth and said, do you know, as he moved closer to Hongbion. Do you know about pointless riddles? Baek Eosun calmly thought in that case. Then he spoke casually, asking Hongbion, so do you know what those nonsensical questions are? Hearing this, Hongbion was taken aback, but she misinterpreted it. Nonsensical, I think. I think I've heard of it. Baek Eosun calmly explained, I'll give you an example. What is in the middle of a knee and a knee? After a moment of confusion, she answered, behind the knee. Baek Yusun immediately refuted it. Wrong. It's the word and. She asked blankly, how is that? Baek Yusun smiled and analyzed. I asked, what is in the middle of a knee and a knee, remember? Hearing that, Hongbion sat there stunned and speechless. Then she became angry, glaring at him with daggers in her eyes. Baek Yusun grew flustered and tried to reassure her. Hey, now don't look at me like that. He waved his hands and smiled, trying to diffuse the situation. Calm down a bit and look at the question again. He looked at the red marks on her paper and analyzed. It clearly has formulas and methods you've never seen before. That means you have to solve it entirely. With your own creativity. But you can't just memorize creativity, can you? These words made Hongbion thoughtful, as if thinking of something. Her gaze dropped. Then she replied faintly, no, not getting the answer he wanted. Baek Yusun smiled relaxedly and added, of course, learning all those techniques and spells is very important. This caught Hongbion's attention. He then said, but for a mage, the most important thing is, given your current situation, you need to see the world from a perspective that goes far beyond your imagination. Magic can develop from the smallest of changes. He then bluntly pointed out her weakness. But you only think about things as... And now you've already seen them. Baek Yusun reminded her, spells aren't just for memorizing and then tossing aside. He calmly affirmed, you might be better than me at analytical thinking and judgment. At this point, he pointed out Hongbion's flaw. But you lack the most important quality of a mage, and that is creativity. At that moment, her hands hidden beneath the table began to tremble slightly. A dark aura emanated from her entire body. Baek Yusun broke into a cold sweat, flustered. Oh man. That look on her face is terrifying. He scratched his head, forced an awkward smile, and said, you understand everything I've said, right? Although it was a bit complicated, Hongbion's mood had improved. She looked up and replied, of course. He kept that smile on his face, silently cursing himself. Just great. I have no idea what I'm saying, he thought, then said cheerfully. I'm glad you understand. Now let's begin. At that moment, Baek Yuseong posed a riddle. What creature can walk, eat, but people still say it doesn't know how to walk? Hongbionse was stumped, not knowing how to answer. She repeated the question to herself. What creature can walk, but people still say it doesn't know how to walk? Unable to come up with an answer, Hongbionse gave up. I don't know. He told her the answer was a cow. Then Baek Yuseong moved on to another question. Why doesn't a bed work hard? She looked uncomfortable again. I don't know, he explained, because they're always lying down on the job. Then came another one. What would happen if rock, paper, and scissors joined a race? She was getting annoyed, repeating her answer mechanically. I don't know. He cheerfully explained, rock would roll, but paper and scissors are stationary, get it? They wouldn't move. Because they're stationary, Hongbionse's whole body began to tremble, which made Baek Yuseong a little confused. Her brow furrowed and her lips pressed into a tight line as she suppressed her anger. Suddenly, Hongbionse shot to her feet. Realizing he'd pushed her a bit too far with the riddles, his expression froze. Whoa, she could blow up at any second. But to help Hongbionse break through, Baek Yuseong had to press on. So, what would the cloud say to the ocean? He asked awkwardly, struggling to finish the sentence. What could a cloud say to the ocean when the raindrops are falling? Seeing her remain silent, his mind was in turmoil. Please, please. To his surprise, Hongbionse said, my tears greet the ocean. Hearing her answer, he froze for a moment. Okay. Oh. Then he smiled brightly and replied, that's it. You got it right. Realizing she'd guessed correctly, she broke into a radiant smile. Baek Yuseong, noticed thinking, whoa, this is the first time I've ever seen her smile both in the game and in real life. He rested his chin on his hand and chuckled, praising her, just as I'd expect from a princess. Your creativity is far beyond a normal person's. Hearing the compliment, Hong Beyonce blushed with embarrassment. She quickly changed the subject. All right, that's enough. Let's have the next one. Seeing her adorable expression, he was delighted and continued to ask more trick questions like that. The next question is, by the time night fell upon the ancient academy, the students had gradually left their classes. Baek Yu-seong also strode out. His face was now etched with fatigue, with dark circles clearly visible under his eyes. He let out an exhausted sigh. I just wasted 3 hours asking Hong Beyonce all those nonsensical riddles. The memory of the ridiculousness he had just been through flooded his mind. I can't believe she actually bought all that stuff I was saying. Baek Yu-seong stared blankly ahead. From what he knew of the beautiful but quiet girl, Hong Beyonce was undoubtedly a brilliant mage with a sharp mind, Baek Yu-seong thought as he glided along. But her weakness is her rigid by-the-book way of thinking, still exploiting that weakness. Even though she's a villain, I still feel a little guilty. Baek Yu-seong steeled his resolve. I have to hurry and turn 31 into a magic sword. Only then will I be able to get other things done. Well, it's not like I can't do things differently. He looked up at the brightly lit houses in the dark night and told himself, that's enough thinking for now. I need to hurry up and buy the book I'm looking for. Before long, Baek Yu-seong arrived at a deserted street. He looked around, asking himself, is it around here somewhere? I don't remember exactly. Suddenly, he tilted his head up. He'd found the place he was looking for. Baek Yu-seong cried out in delight. There it is! The sky outside had begun to darken. Below was an old, dilapidated house. The inside of the house was filled with cobwebs. Next to them stood a bookshelf, its contents neatly arranged. He stepped inside, carefully taking it all in. It's quite old. A second later, Baek Yu-seong glanced over at the shop owner sitting below. They exchanged a nod of greeting. But I know this bookseller has a strange habit. He pretends to be asleep while observing his customers. The man concealed his face under a stern hat, watching the every move of those who entered. A thought surfaced in his mind. In this nameless, unknown bookstore are the notes of Yahello, who graduated as the valedictorian of Stellar Academy 15 years ago. The treasure that person recorded is hidden here. He imagined the system appearing with a screen showing a button like in the game, asking, will you study this period? Yes or no? But in real life, I'll need that notebook for a simple subject. Most importantly, depending on the type of textbook, the rate at which my stats increase will differ. Images of shimmering books appeared in his mind. Looking at the shelves packed with books, he thought to himself, at first I bought books from famous bookstores, but then I discovered that the truly precious books are found in bookstores with no signs. Baek Yu-seong wandered among the shelves, examining every spot. If I can take the magic engineering class based on Yahello's notes, I'll definitely get a perfect score. Walking toward a row of books, he mused, well, just using the Bulbul's monocle would be enough to get a perfect score. But I wouldn't be able to develop my techniques that way, so suddenly Baek Yu-seong spotted something. He stopped in his tracks. A small blue book at the end of the aisle had caught his eye. There it is. As Baek Yu-seong stepped forward and reached out to grab the book, his hand accidentally brushed against someone else's, who was also reaching for it. A little startled, he turned his head to look at the person. Yes, and the owner of that hand was Isel. Holding a book, she looked over at him with a blank expression. Hearing that she asked, a little confused and curious, you know me? Baek Yu-seong replied bluntly. Of course. You're very famous, didn't you know? At that moment, Isel recognized him too. She quickly replied, I remember now. You're from the supplementary class. Your name is Baek Yu-seong, right? Hearing her words, he was surprised and thought to himself, huh? Does she not remember what happened on the first day at the academy? Suddenly, Isel mentioned the day he solved the problem, remarking with admiration. That was a great counter-argument, but I was a bit disappointed you didn't explain it all. Hearing that, he suddenly remembered. Come to think of it, Isel couldn't have solved that question either. After saying that, she turned to leave, just adding, anyway, it was nice meeting you. Baek Yu-seong reached for a green book, but his eyes remained fixed on her back as she walked away. As he watched her walk away, he sighed in relief, thinking, thank heavens she didn't take it. Seeing her move to another bookshelf, he wondered to himself, but why is she here? Isel took out another book, but after seeing the exorbitant price tag, she let out a sigh and put it back on the shelf. Sigh. He caught sight of this. He was a little confused, thinking to himself, what's going on? A series of thoughts ran through his mind. In reality, this bookstore mostly sells used books. So the students who come here are usually poor students, like me. He glanced over to where Isel was standing. Someone from a fallen family like Isel, and someone who's lost everything, surely has no choice but to come here. Her father was probably killed by that damn black magic cult. The one person backing her was just gone. Thinking about this, Baek Yu-seong felt a bit of pity for her. How sad that a princess like her has to worry about the price of a book because she's short on money. Baek Yu-seong recalled the plot of the original novel. He thought, what's more, Isel also has a tragic end in the original story. She dies before Flame, this world's protagonist. A single small flame destroyed the young girl's life. You could say the most unfortunate character in this game is Isel. She noticed him staring and looked a little bewildered. Having made up his mind, Baek Yu-seong brought a stack of books to the counter and set them down. He smiled brightly and said to the shopkeeper, "I'd like to check out, please." The shopkeeper was a bit surprised. "This whole stack, wow, this young man is stronger than he looks." Noticing Isel's gaze, he smiled and glanced at her. Standing beside him, Isel lowered her head, looking incredibly awkward. At that moment, Baek Yuseong asked, "What's wrong?" She replied hesitantly, "You're just, it looks like you've chosen some interesting books." Baek Yuseong forced a smile, thinking to himself, was she just about to insult me? Glancing at the titles, she asked curiously. For example, all of them. "You're even reading books on high-level sealing magic." Isel looked at them intently and added, "Sealing theory is an ancient magic that requires a catalyst." "What? So now that alchemy and magic engineering aren't very developed, it's rarely used." Hearing that, Baek Yuseong replied calmly, "Oh, this one. That's right, it's a magic few people use." She lowered her gaze. "So you knew." A moment later, he added, "That's exactly why I chose it." Hearing this, her eyes widened in shock. Isel quickly turned to him and asked, "What?" Holding the paid stack of books, he gave a sly smile and replied, "Everyone thinks just like you. That's how I can get higher scores in class." With that, Baek Yuseong left. "Well, I'll be on my way." Leaving Isel behind with a completely puzzled expression, Baek Yuseong departed with his stack of books. He smiled and thought to himself, Isel was right. Very few people are willing to study sealing theory. But because of that, I can spend less time on it and still get a high score compared to other subjects. This made him even more confident in his plan. "I'll pass this semester with ease." Isel silently watched his back as he left. By Monday morning, sunlight was filtering into the academy's hallways. As she walked, she was preoccupied with her first period class, nihilism. She'd already calculated which courses it would be easy to get good grades in, and this was supposed to be one of them. So it should be fine. But the moment she got to the classroom, she saw it was completely packed. Her classmates were chatting amongst themselves. "You're taking nihilism too." The girl next to her continued, "Yeah, but it's not looking very promising. I signed up for this class because everyone said it's easy to get a high grade. It seems like everyone else heard that too." All the honor students registered for this class. Isel quietly found herself a seat. The students nearby continued their conversation. I'm so screwed." Seeing the full classroom, she could only sigh in defeat. "There's no salvaging this. I'll just have to do my best in my other classes, I guess." After a while, the professor finished the lecture for the day and announced to the class is dismissed. People slowly started to file out. I'm starving." Isel walked out behind them with a somber expression. In front of her, other students were chatting excitedly. "What should we eat for lunch?" "Let's just decide when we get to the cafeteria." Knowing the road ahead was getting rougher, Isel sighed as she walked. This is going to be a problem. If there are too many people in the classes I signed up for, it'll be really hard to get the scholarship. Suddenly, her stomach growled. She blushed with embarrassment and gripped the book in her hands tighter. Looking at the meal ticket in her hand, she felt conflicted, wondering, should I go get something to eat first? Iso tried to calculate carefully as she walked. Let's see. I only have 60 meal tickets for the whole semester, so I guess I should just eat bread today. Suddenly, her eyes darted over to a nearby classroom. Iso caught sight of a familiar figure. It was Becky Yuson wearing glasses and diligently looking up at the board. "Isn't that Becky Yuson?" As she walked past the classroom, Iso happened to spot that familiar figure. It was none other than Becky Yuson. Stunned, she watched him, wondering to herself, what's he doing here? Seeing what was on the board, she suddenly understood. It's a lecture. This classroom, in contrast to hers, only had a few scattered students. Iso thought to herself, but it looks like there are very few people taking this class. The students here are all the ones with poor grades. Before leaving, Iso hesitated for a moment. This class will probably be cut soon anyway, she thought, if Iso recalled correctly. If I sign up for this class, I could raise my score without much effort. She hugged the book to her chest, her body trembling slightly, and I'd have more time to study for other subjects. Then I'll be able to get the scholarship money. Iso looked up, a glint of determination in her eyes as she watched his focused figure. She speculated, Becky Yusun. Did he already know this was an easy class to get a good grade in? How come Iso suddenly remembered how he was like a prophet? Could it be that he calculated every single move to benefit himself? Iso's gaze toward him grew more serious. And with that, she left. Iso tried to reassure herself. It's fine. I'm probably just overthinking things. It's definitely just a coincidence. Outside, the gentle morning sun softly illuminated everything. The teacher at the podium continued his lecture. You all must already know about the origin of magic. The professor was Professor Ladin, a researcher of the divine moons. He began to explain. The first mage, the white mage, was the one who spread magic throughout the world, and humans, along with other races, learned how to use it. He continued to recount the deeds of that mage. He taught the elves nature magic. As Ladin spoke, the image of the elven race with their gentle natural beauty gradually formed in each student's mind. And then there were the dwarves with sharp weapons in their hands. Ladin added, he taught material magic to the dwarves so they could forge magnificent weapons, and he taught elemental magic to humankind. In the end, he ascended to the heavens. Everyone below was silent. Even Becky Yuson was dazed, thinking about the time that would follow. How on earth did I get through these 3 years, like he thought miserably as he scribbled notes in his notebook? Going back to school at this age is pure torture. He recalled the past and made a silent comparison. Before I could just get past this part by hitting the skip button, Becky Yusun sighed in frustration. But this class is actually pretty important. I might be able to find a clue about the ending. What it really is, Becky Yusun told himself. It's just a guess, though. Suddenly a thought occurred to him. But then he glanced at the person next to him suspicious. Has Aiso always been in this class? Seeing her sitting next to him, he was surprised. I don't remember any of the main characters taking this class, but then he thought, whatever. He then focused on the lecture. Humanity's curiosity did not stop at elemental magic, Ladian said, pointing to a drawing on the board. The mages began to travel all over the world, stealing the magic of other races. Even so, they were not satisfied. Then he added, but they couldn't learn anything more from the first mage. He left behind 12 divine moons and vanished. He abandoned everything and left. At this point, he looked down at the students and asked, does anyone know about the 12 divine moons? Aiso spoke up. They're known as the guardian deities who protect the balance of power on the continent. It's believed they were scattered across the continent to carry out their mission, until 1,000 years ago. Ladian raised his staff, agreeing with her. Precisely. They possess special powers to protect the continent. Ladian explained the structures of the various magics. For instance, the divine moon representing Summer, the sixth moon, red summer, carries a blazing red flame, and they say that flame never goes out. An octopus with a blazing red aura appeared. It looked incredibly dangerous. At this, he calmly said, if you go to the bottom of the Alamanca Sea, you can still see the red flame, so anyone who's curious can go take a look. After hearing this, Becky Yusun felt completely helpless and thought to himself, are you kidding me, Professor Ladian? He looked at Ladian lecturing at the podium, remembering the comment he just made. He thought to himself, if a living creature enters the domain of the Sea King Alamanca, they'll definitely fall asleep instantly. Pointing to a flower-like drawing on the board, the professor introduced it. This is Bolivia, a giant whirlpool in the middle of the ocean that was frozen by the 12th moon, winter southeast. He further analyzed, each moon has its own unique power, and a miracle will occur if they are all gathered. At this, a student spoke up and asked, what is that miracle? Placing a hand on his book, Ladian casually replied, that no one knows? They all fell into a deep sleep 1,000 years ago. Hearing this, Becky Yusun agreed with him. He was right. Before Becky Yusun had fought through at least, I've encountered a few moon gods while playing the game, but I only ever found 5 of them through time-limited events, Becky. Uson recalled the time when all she did was sit glued to the computer screen. It was because I had gone and collected information from other players in the community. No one has found more moon gods than me. At this, Becky Yusun's gaze became unusually profound. If my hypothesis is correct, the 12 moon gods are related to the true ending. If no one has found the true ending in 15 years, the answer must lie in content that no one has reached yet. She thought pensively, I only found 5 after risking my life multiple times. Then Becky Yusun calculated for a moment. But I have no other choice. If I want to witness the true ending, I have to do it all over again. At the same time, elsewhere, someone was attacking the wooden dummy with firepower. The white-haired teacher spoke up. Power isn't everything. This person conjured a magic staff, reminding everyone. No matter how powerful the attack is, it's useless if it doesn't hit the enemy. This was Professor Hongjiel's fire class. The students took out their staffs and began to cast their fire magic. Suddenly her gaze hardened. At that moment, a powerful stream of fire struck the wooden dummy. A huge explosion immediately erupted, creating a thick cloud of smoke and dust. Hongjiel calmly observed the situation. Then her eyes widened. The smoke gradually cleared, revealing the hazy silhouette of the wooden dummy as the dust and smoke completely dissipated. The wooden dummy remained completely undamaged. The group of people stared in utter shock at the sight. She gave a cold assessment. How pathetic. Hongjiel looked towards her and called out, Hong Bizeon, princess. A moment later, a dejected Hong Bizeon was sitting on a bench. She thought sadly to herself, I've disappointed Mom again. Flustered, she sat there wringing her 2 hands. Mom must hate me so much. Suddenly, someone approached and called out, startling her slightly. Princess. The person standing before her was Aksuan. She smiled in a friendly manner and asked cheerfully, Hong Bizeon, are you okay? After that, the two sat together. Noticing the silent atmosphere, Aksuan broke the silence with a compliment. You're truly amazing. Hearing this, she looked bewildered. What do you mean? Ashua sat beside her, praising her. Your magic is the same type as mine, but yours is many times more powerful. Bizeon replied nonchalantly, I can't even hit the target. Aksuan, with a radiant smile, comforted her. But your magic is incredible. It looks super cool. Then she added, actually, I've heard stories about you since I was a little kid. Now, Hong Bizeon remembered. Oh, that's right. She's a fire type, just like me. If I'm not mistaken, this girl who's smiling so cheerfully, her eyes have crinkled into slits. Her name is Aksuan, I believe. Bizeon tried to recall. I think I've heard of her before. That a new generation's genius fire mage has appeared. She possesses immense magical power. Hong Bizeon compared herself to her. Even so, she's nothing compared to my magic. Thinking this, her face darkened as she said in a serious tone, your accuracy is impressive too. Her words made Aksuan a bit uncomfortable. But if you practice more, I could never compare. Hong Bizeon suddenly shot to her feet. She spoke with a voice full of arrogance. It's enough for trash. Then Hong Biseon looked at Aksuan with a somewhat indifferent gaze. In any case, talking to you made me feel much better. After that, she turned her back and walked away, leaving only a single word, goodbye. She lowered her head slightly unhappy. When she lifted her eyes, they were filled with a deep hidden meaning devoid of the earlier warmth. Not long after the sky began to turn to dusk, the door opened. In the room, the potted plant was still lush and green. Stepping inside, she let out a tired sigh. A soft voice called out Princess Biseon. That person stood respectfully and properly in the room. Hong Biseon's personal guard, Aye Terran, spoke with a completely emotionless face, though her tone sounded somewhat cheerful. Yeah, welcome back. The candy and tea are all prepared. Terran said, please have some tea and a bit of ginseng candy. Biseon replied flatly, thanks. Then Terran lowered her head and seriously reported on the weapon modification mission you assigned the other day. Because the magic staff was so good, they'll be able to create a high-grade sword. Hearing this, Hong Biseon calmly picked up a piece of candy. Is that so? Aye Terran spoke carefully. However, there is something a bit strange. Biseon paused, raising an eyebrow at her and asking back, strange. She narrowed her eyes and replied slowly, it's said that the staff constantly and forcefully absorbs its owner's mana. Hearing this reply, Hong Biseon froze for a moment. Biseon asked in amazement, seeming to know nothing about the weapon. Is it a dark weapon? Aye. Terran put a hand to her chin, lost in thought for a moment before saying, it's a little different. It resonates with natural energy. Hearing this, Biseon, who was resting her chin on her hand, immediately refuted it. Impossible. How can it drain its owner's mana, but also resonate with natural mana? Her heart was filled with suspicion. Biseon looked over and asked, then why is that stuff rated mid-high grade? Aye Terran, still standing properly to one side, replied, that is precisely why it is mid-high grade. This statement confused Hong Biseon. What do you mean? She spoke coldly, analyzing the staff's original ability significantly enhances the user's mana, making it a high-grade weapon or perhaps even higher than that. Then she explained further, but because simply holding the staff causes it to drain your mana, this tool was downgraded to mid-high grade. Thinking about that ordinary-looking magic staff, to think it held such great magic, she shot to her feet, waving her hand in surprise and exclaiming, high grade, how could a student possibly use that? Even Aye Terran found this unusual, saying, I am also quite curious about that. After processing the information, Hong Biseon felt a headache coming on. She quickly clutched her head, closed her eyes, and said, I knew from the start it wasn't something just anyone could resonate with. But I didn't think anyone would actually use it even if they got their hands on it, unless that person had a tremendous amount of mana, or none at all. Then she shook her head nonchalantly and waved her hand. I don't understand. That commoner will surely figure it out eventually. Just as she picked up her teacup, she stopped and said hesitantly, in any case, he can't be just an ordinary person. By now the sky was tinged with the colors of late evening. For several days after the semester began, as the sun hung high in the sky, bathing all creation in light, the students attended their classes and lectures as usual. Big Yuson sat below silent. He was seriously listening to the teacher's lecture. Attack magic needs to be applied with more detail than other types of magic. That's why this mana channeling class is mandatory. The teacher lecturing his hair showing his age was the mana channeling Professor Kalim. Sitting a few desks away was Aizo. She was focused intently on the lesson, listening to his words. From now on, in your combat matches, you will learn to channel by focusing on launching and aiming your attacks. Kalim picked up a piece of chalk and began to draw. A circle looking like a wheel was completed. He pointed to the drawing, then looked down at the students and said, let's discuss the trajectory formula first, shall we? The lines on this board mean from a distance of 760 meters to the north, Chosu is running at a velocity of 12.6 meters per second to the south. What is the appropriate trajectory and predicted observation distance that Yanghi needs to hit the target Chosu with water magic? After he finished reading, the entire class fell dead silent. At that moment, a few students sitting behind him started whispering. Of all the attributes, it's water. If you don't have a water-based system, how are you supposed to answer this? Another person chimed in, is he trying to make things difficult for us? Just sitting and listening to the lecture, Big Yuson felt a bit tired and let out a yawn. So boring. He thought to himself in frustration, why are these classes so damn hard? However, his unconscious action had caught the professor's hawk-like eyes. Meeting that gaze, he flinched, and of course he was targeted. Kalim raised his voice, inviting Big Yuson to come up and solve the problem. Big Yuson stood up and replied with a forced smile, yes, sir. Internally, he couldn't help but scream, shit, I'm busted. A moment later, he had completed the problem. The chalk in his hand stopped. He turned around and said to the professor, I'm done, sir. Looking at the flawless, detailed solution, the professor was stunned, his eyes wide and mouth agape. Kalim examined it carefully while saying to him, excellent work, to see it so clearly and solve this problem in such a short amount of time. Then the old man approached and asked about his magic attribute. Is your initial attribute water? Big Yuson smiled until his eyes crinkled, waving his hands in denial. No, sir. After that, the professor let him return to his seat. Good. We will continue the lesson next period. Aisul watched silently from the side. Before long, the class ended. Everyone left the room one by one. Just as he was about to leave, a familiar voice called out, Excuse me? He immediately turned to look. Huh. He saw her staring at him, clutching a book in her hands. He was confused. She just stood there staring with wide eyes for a moment before speaking. I have something I want to ask you. Baek-Yuson turned back around. Seeing it was her, he pressed his lips together, stunned for a moment. A second later, he opened his mouth and asked, "What is it?" Iso said nothing, her wide eyes scanning him from top to bottom. In her mind, she had been considering many things while observing Baek-Yuson. I'm sure of one thing. Grades aside, he's definitely an intelligent person. He could even be compared to the very best. She recalled the sight of him calmly solving a difficult problem, casually saying one sentence. "I'm done, sir." At that moment, Aishul had to widen her eyes to see, but she still couldn't believe it. No way. With that difficult problem on the board, that's at least at the university level. No, the professor level. She sat there watching him talk with the professor, thinking to herself, even if they say Stella is a gathering place for geniuses. What is Baek-Yuson's true identity, really? Seeing his unremarkable appearance and his less than special grades, Aishul naturally didn't think highly of him. At first, I thought it was impossible, but now I'm sure of it. He definitely has a strategy for registering for his courses. If that's the case, then she frowned, her expression eager as she spoke up and asked him, "What's your next class?" Inside, Aishul had another thought. I absolutely have to get that information. Hearing her sudden question, Baek-Yuson stared, surprised. After a moment, he asked back, flustered, "Why are you asking? Do you like me or something?" Iso, annoyed, immediately shot back, "Ew, that's gross." Then he continued, "Trust me, I'm the one who's more grossed out, you know." Feeling that what he just said was a bit childish, he told himself, "I'm an adult. What am I doing?" Baek-Yuson rubbed his neck, closed his eyes, and frowned slightly, wondering, "Anyway, why are you asking?" She frankly stated her theory. "I've researched a few of the classes you're taking, and it seems they're all courses where you can easily get high scores." Hearing that, he froze. Now Aishul spoke without any hesitation. "So I'll get straight to the point. Where did you learn that strategy, huh? Because it's quite important to me." As she finished speaking, Baek-Yuson thought in a panic, I was wondering what she was going to ask. On the outside, Baek-Yuson simply waved his hand and gave a strained laugh, replying, "Ha, what do you mean learn? It's probably just a coincidence." Seeing things were getting out of hand, Baek-Yuson quickly found an excuse to leave. He turned towards the door. Before leaving, he left her with one sentence, "If that's all, then I'm leaving." Watching him walk away, she stared wide-eyed, startled, and called out, "Wait." Aishul frantically called out, "Wait." But he kept walking without stopping. She stood there stunned, her lips parting to let out a small "ah" before she pressed them shut. Then determined, she ran after him, shouting, "Please wait a second." Hearing this, Baek-Yusong's eyes widened in surprise. He turned to look at her as a flustered Aishul approached, stammering, "Wait, just a moment." Seeing her following him, he replied, confused, "What the hell? Why are you following me? Go learn that stuff from someone else. There are plenty of smart people here." Then he added, "Or you could just do what I'm doing." "You said you did your research, didn't you?" Aishul was breathing and heavily exhausted, but facing his bewildered gaze, she nervously summoned her courage and explained, "Anyone who takes Sacred Moon Studies gets an A+, so if I take it too, it won't be a problem. But if I sign up for the other classes you're taking, it'll negatively affect your grades." He looked at her as she stood there. Her eyes were full of anxious hope as she waited for his answer. Baek-Yuseong felt a pang of pity. If she didn't get the scholarship, she would be the one at the biggest disadvantage. But even in that situation, she was still worried about someone else's grades. Although it's a bit of a pain, I guess the main character is still the main character. With that thought, he quietly observed her. Just then, Aishul looked up at him, putting on a cute expression and blinking her eyes for help. "Anyway, could you suggest a class for me? One that's easy to get a high grade in?" He replied coldly. "You think that expression is going to convince me?" Instantly, she touched her face, trying to look even more vulnerable to win him over. "It's not working. That's strange. Every time I look at this face, all my worries just seem to melt away." Baek-Yuseong watched her unusual expression, feeling only a sense of gloom. He asked blankly, "Are you serious?" But she wasn't done teasing him. Aishul's eyes crinkled happily as she giggled. "I'm just kidding, I knew you'd react like this. So I've prepared a reward for you." Hearing this, he said in surprise, "A reward?" Her words reminded him of when Hong Beyonce had proposed something similar. His mouth fell open as he thought helplessly, why are these people so obsessed with offering rewards? Where do they learn to be so dramatic? Next, Aishul asked, "Do you know anything about the ghost story of the Seventh Tower?" Her question made him freeze. Baek-Yusong's eyes widened as he stared at her suspiciously. "Yeah." Then standing face to face with her, he said frankly, I know about it." Hearing his answer, she was overjoyed. Really very few people know about that. Regaining her composure, Aishul casually revealed what she knew. Because it's an abandoned tower that has disappeared, but there are a bunch of barriers preventing people from getting close to where it used to be. But that place... He didn't let her finish. Baek-Yusong cut her off. "Wait." His words made her feel confused, and she glanced at him. She saw that he looked exhausted. She asked with concern, "Is everything all right?" Listening to her chatter, he closed his eyes and sighed to himself. "I'm going crazy." To him, this was now a huge deal. Baek-Yuseong couldn't help but feel bewildered. Because with it, flame could increase her influence over the male lead through the novel's text. So if Flame knows that means, in the original novel, Isol also knows about it. It's possible she and the male lead will meet in some romantic setting, and Isol is only supposed to give this information to the male lead. Certainly not to a side character like me. At that moment, Baek Yuseong turned around leisurely. He started walking and said to her, "That's a scary story, right? I don't want to hear it. It's not interesting at all." Isol's eyes widened as she stared blankly at his retreating back. And so the two of them walked down the hallway, talking back and forth. He spoke up. "It's not that scary, though. Are you afraid of ghosts? At your age, it's fine. I'll still tell you for free." She trailed behind him. Isol became wary and probed. "You're acting like you're not going to tell me. Did you change your mind?" Baek Yuseong replied a bit helplessly. I changed my mind." He thought for a moment. Besides, Isol's face was full of anticipation for Baek Yuseong's answer. He thought to himself, just seeing her this sincere is enough. Baek Yuseong spoke up. "By the way," he offered her some advice. "This isn't related to grades, but it'll be extremely useful for you. For your liberal arts elective, sign up for Meditative Journey into the Abyss." Isol recalled asking with some confusion, "Meditation? Sign up for that class as my liberal arts elective. Sacred Moon Studies and Meditation. What are you planning to become a farmer?" Baek Yuseong immediately refuted her. "Not at all." Baek Yuseong raised a hand to scratch the tip of his nose, thinking for a moment, "How do I explain this?" He said to Isol, "My master is a bishop just like yours. So through meditation, she can increase her magical power." "Just with meditation?" Isol asked, full of surprise. "Yep," he confirmed, while Baek Yuseong thought to himself. In reality, this isn't widely known yet, but for bishops who possess immense destructive power, meditation is of the utmost importance. An image of a bishop appeared in his mind. An image of someone holding an omnipotent scepter appeared, followed by a scene of them meditating. Baek Yuseong stated this with certainty thanks to the accuracy derived from formulas and calculations. But in the end, it still comes from the mind, the place where mana originates. He turned to explain further to Izo. "I don't tell this to many people, but since you're cute, you're an exception." "You just said I was ugly," she replied helplessly. He, with a sorrowful expression, smiled gently. "Anyway, thank you. It's a shame it's not a subject that can raise my scores. But I'll still sign up for it." Seeing that she had taken his advice to heart, Baek Yuseong simply let out a "suit yourself." After getting what she wanted, Iso left with a bright smile. Baek Yuseong watched her retreating back, lost in thought. He let out a long sigh. "I really told her, didn't I? I'm a little scared thinking about how this will change the future." A bloody scene flashed through his mind, but if it only helps her escape her fear, Iso will still suffer a tragic death in this life. If meditation can help her, that would be great. Baek Yuseong prayed silently. Suddenly he remembered something. He looked down at his hands with a bewildered expression. "Wait a minute. Now that I think about it, I'm a mage too, right? Why didn't I think about training until now?" He recalled the original game. The Baek Yuseong in the game trained arduously. Awakening apocalyptic magic would affect his constitution and make him grow at a terrifying rate. As he walked down the stairs, Baek Yuseong was lost in his own thoughts. In the game, I could gain experience just by pressing a button. Now I have to do it myself. Anyway, things have been pretty peaceful lately. There are no challenges or monster hunts, so I can't accumulate any more experience. Baek Yuseong suddenly smiled gently. I should be grateful to Izo. He looked around the room and thought, this dorm room is really spacious. He recalled that at Stella all students lived in dormitories. He tried to remember. The dorm system was minor side content where players could decorate their rooms for fun. But for Baek Yuseong, this was basically his only home since his village had been burned to the ground. He walked around the room. The dorms were divided based on the classes students attended. The room sizes were all the same, but the number of people per room would be arranged according to each class. Of course, S-class students stayed on the top floor. Baek Yuseong thought, I feel a little lonely, but I'm lucky to finally have a place to stay. He sighed wearily and returned to a meditative state. Yuseong told himself, let's begin. Baek Yuseong closed his eyes, contemplating. Stats aren't the most important thing. Since this is reality, I have to get used to this body. He recalled that in the game, Baek Yuseong was a genius who could manifest a sword's aura, taking advantage of the fact that mana circulated infinitely both inside and outside his body. Recalling the plot he had played, no one paid attention to him, so no one knew. The plot appeared in Yuseong's mind. But Baek Yuseong was a master swordsman of incredible talent. The only person in the world to reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Yuseong sat meditating seriously. A stream of golden mana enveloped his body. I need to walk that path again. Baek Yuseong could feel the mana flowing throughout him. My breathing is what controls the flow of mana throughout my body. If I can slowly increase the amount of mana with each breath, then I'll gather enough mana soon. After meditating for a while, the mana flowing through Yuseong's body gradually spread into the surrounding air. A skill won't level up just by collecting experience. You have to constantly use that skill. Only then can it level up. That means all I have to do is train. The clock on the wall ticked softly, its hands pointing to the number 4. The sun gradually began to rise. The flow of mana surrounding Yuseong was faint and illusory. Yuseong's eyes snapped open, and he was surprised to find. Looking closely at the mana around him, he thought to himself, This must be the feeling that Big Yuson used to have. He carefully felt the flow. As someone with mana leak syndrome from a young age, it's very faint, but I can feel it. A system notification window suddenly appeared. Skill mana leak syndrome has leveled up. Skill blink has leveled up. He let out a joyous shout that echoed throughout the small room. All right, Big Yuson clenched his fist in satisfaction, thinking, I've gotten closer to my goal. His face was filled with satisfaction, his eyes flashing with determination. I will definitely find the true ending. The scene changes to a place with a lush green field of grass. All the first-year students of the academy moved one by one to the assembly point, a place filled with an endless sea of green grass. Florem gently felt the soft breeze. It carried the scent of fresh grass as it blew against her. She thought to herself, the grassy field and the wind are probably created by magic, but they feel so real. In the game, the Stellar Dormitory is a pocket dimension created on the academy grounds. The game's setting allows for adjustments to the size and characteristics of this place. All sporting events and other types of events like dungeons gates and monster training are held here. The students were all gathered in one place, not in neat rows, but not chaotically clustered either. Her eyes swept over everyone present. Florem stood at the back of the crowd. She did a quick calculation. There are a total of 141 people. She recalled the novel's contents. 50 students in classes A1 and A2, 41 students in S class. If it's the same as the novel, then the S classes should only have 39 students. Florem silently considered. Including me, that makes 40, but one more person was added. Florem immediately questioned, where did Big Yuson come from? She slowly recalled the original script. In the novel, there are a total of 1,140 first-year students. Plus me, that's 1,141. In other words, Big Yuson was also in the novel. Florem tried to calm down, but anxiety was clearly written on her elegant face. I'll figure it out slowly. It's okay. I can do this. She clenched her fists, trying hard to reassure herself. After all, I'm the only one in this world who knows about the novel. Florem lifted her feet and followed the other students. Class is about to start. Suddenly, a voice called out, catching her attention. Young Master Jeremy, have you finished registering for your classes? Jeremy smiled brightly and replied, Of course I'm done. The person continued, We signed up for soft magic research because we heard you were taking that class too. Hearing this, he flashed a bright smile, sparkling as if favored by the sun. Oh, really? Let's help each other out then. Flame overheard the entire conversation, her face emotionless as she glanced at the fawning crowd. She remembered him, Prince Jeremy. He had blonde hair and was always smiling. The story in the novel revolved around the prince. He was infatuated with the idol, but was rejected, and in the end, he became a villain. Flame assessed the situation. He seemed kind enough. But his every move is calculated. I should be careful and stay away from him. Jeremy glanced over and noticed Flame standing nearby, watching them. He immediately smiled and waved at her. Flame waved back, thinking to herself, He's undeniably handsome. I can see why so many people fawn over him. Her suspicion of the man before her, didn't lessen in the slightest. Prince Jeremy was definitely the most suspicious person in this school. Flame turned and walked away. Her thoughts returned to her own affairs. I need to focus. This world is my reality now. I have to prepare for the future. Watching her leave, Jeremy smiled unconsciously. He remembered her name. If I'm not mistaken, that's Flame. Over here. Once all the students had gathered, the professor stepped before them. He spoke softly. Everyone attention. The professor stood formally and began to explain. We will begin with a simple training exercise. Before we start our lessons, I need to know your skill levels to tailor my teaching accordingly. I will be your direct instructor. If you don't like that, you'll just have to deal with it. The professor's stern face swept over them. Before starting the class, he made a point to remind the students so they wouldn't do anything reckless. As you all know, your professors have the authority to raise or lower your scores. Remember, you will be expelled if you fall below a certain threshold. Having finished his reminder, he continued with the details of what was to come. Now I will explain the training in more detail. The professor held out a hand, explaining slowly, We will be conducting a simulated dungeon training test. I will use effects, traps, and monsters that appear in real dungeons to test you. The rules of the dungeon are as follows. You will receive 4 points for a level 1 danger class monster and 8 points for a level 2 danger class monster. While speaking, he took out a staff, and 20 points if you retrieve the point staff. The staff vanished as soon as he finished explaining the scoring. The top 5 students will receive a small reward and priority shopping privileges. Students with 0 points will have their grades lowered. Flame listened intently. If you are afraid of failing or of being alone, you may form a party. But remember, the points will be divided equally among all party members. A second after he finished his explanation, he vanished. But before he left, he didn't forget to add one last thing. If you successfully defeat another student, you will obtain their points. That is all. Good luck? Then the ground began to shake violently. Seeing this, the anxious student stammered, What the... A loud scream caught everyone's attention. The ground was... Right after that, screams rang out one by one. With creaking and groaning sounds from beneath their feet, giant branches broke through the earth. Flame realized what was happening, thinking to herself, This is huge tangled branches. The Jack and the Beanstalk map appeared. The map showed countless large trees intricately woven together, creating a magnificent landscape. All the students stood frozen. The sudden change made everyone hesitant to act rashly. Flame stood still, even as others had already started splitting up to find teammates. Her initial surprise at the dungeon's transformation was gone. Gripping her weapon tightly, she silently resolved, "All right, time for me to get going too." Suddenly, someone called her name from behind. "Flame." The one who called her was Jackie. "Are you planning to go alone?" Jackie asked with a smile. Behind her were a few others waving at Flame. Flame said quietly, "Ah, Jackie." She looked at Jackie, mentally weighing the pros and cons of going solo versus forming a team. Although teaming up has its advantages, it's better to go alone to get more points. Having made her decision, Flame began her refusal. "I'm sorry, I want to try going solo this time." Jackie's eyes narrowed into a bright smile. She replied softly, her tone carrying a strange edge. "Ah, I see. If we teamed up, you'd have to share your points with your teammates, right?" Flame replied, That's right." Faced with such blatant sarcasm, Flame could only think, it sounds like she's mocking me. Before turning to leave, Flame added one more thing to keep the peace. "Let's team up next time, okay?" Jackie turned back and replied, "Sure." Flame didn't leave right away, pausing for a moment to watch Jackie's back as she walked toward her friends. Seeing the way they talked, Flame couldn't help but overthink. "Am I overthinking this? I just get the feeling she's copying me," Jackie said to her friends. "Flame is going alone?" Her friend replied, "Oh well." She didn't pay too much attention to it. Flame turned away, thinking to herself, "Well, I'm sure it'll go away later." Time flew by. An hour later on the ground, a small green monster was defeated, its entire body exploding. Flame had been fighting nonstop for a long time. She was exhausted. Phew, so tired. Surrounding her now were the corpses of low-level monsters. She wondered when this training session would finally end. Suddenly, as if sensing something was amiss, Flame quietly went, Right after that, a tree with many large branches lunged to attack her. Flame reacted nimbly. She immediately used magic to block the blow. After the attack, the branches scattered around her before quickly returning to their original spots under the ground. Flame looked around, thinking, it's not just the monsters. Even the plants are attacking. A look of clear surprise showed on her face. This is Stella, all right. Even their practical dungeon training is no joke. She silently recalculated her points after an hour of monster slaying. Right now, I've collected 18 points. Not bad, but with this lead, someone else only needs 1 point to catch up to me. Flame quickly left her spot. As she walked, she thought, I have to keep moving. Suddenly, Flame noticed something in the distance. There was a faint, hazy figure. The silhouette was against the sun, making it very hard to see, only vaguely recognizable. Startled, she softly cried out, "Over there!" The figure appeared unclear. This made Flame wonder, is it a monster? Looking again carefully, Flame thought, no, it's a person. But how can a student possess such incredible stealth skills? Flame bit her lip in thought. It's fine. After all, I can also hide by merging with nature. She pressed herself behind a large tree trunk, carefully recalling the skill. With Flame's traits like binding destruction defense and healing ambushing, the opponent was the most suitable option. From her hiding spot, Flame carefully watched the person before her. Suddenly, Flame gasped in surprise. Huh! She couldn't believe her eyes, her astonishment written all over her face. It was Baek Yuson. Baek Yuson looked around, assessing the situation. Seeing no one beside him, Flame guessed, he's on his own too. Flame recalled what she'd accidentally overheard from other students. They said many people wanted to form a team with Baek Yuson, but he turned them all down. I wonder what this guy is up to. Flame suddenly noticed something, unable to hide the surprise in her eyes. The thing Yuson is holding, a point stick. He already got one. Flame thought for a moment and then decided, this is the perfect opportunity. She looked over to where Yuson was standing. Let me test him. Flame began to perform the radiant charge spell, and immediately the weapon in her hand started to glow. She calculated the distance from her to him was about 15 meters. At that distance, there's no way he can defend in time. A brilliant magic aura appeared around her. Flame's gaze turned dead serious. She held her weapon out and without hesitation cast the light bullet spell. The bullet, glowing with a dazzling golden light, shot towards Yuson. Sensing the danger, Yuson immediately looked over, right after Yuson risked using his blink skill. A second before the light bullet could hit where he stood, Yuson vanished into thin air. Flame couldn't believe her eyes, exclaiming in utter shock, "What?" She stood there staring at the spot where Yuson had just been. The ground where the attack hit was scorched black. Thick smoke and dust billowed out, completely hiding any sign of Yuson. Flame gripped her weapon tightly, her face a mask of confusion. How? She asked herself, bewildered. He dodged a level 2 spell from that distance. The scene shifts to Yuson's perspective. In that moment, he used Blink, vanishing in a flash, and immediately reappearing in another location from where he was standing. Yuson saw Flame. He felt completely helpless and thought to himself, good grief, is she trying to kill me or something? Why would she suddenly use Light Bullet out of nowhere?